All right, well, welcome back. For those of you who are paying attention to the pre-executive session. I'm going to go right to the discussion of garbage pickup on Main Street. Okay. Turn it over to you. Please.
Since I guess
She said she's coming, just maybe a little late. I would never pass up an opportunity to sit next to her.
we're proposing to stop the garbage pickup on Wednesdays that we do on Main Street. Main Street is the only place we pick up garbage on Wednesdays. The other routes are Monday, Thursday, and Tuesday, Friday. But due to the increase in recycling, it's really putting a burden on us. As you know, we do the entire village on Wednesday for bulk, which is bottles, cans, and plastic, and for pulp, which is cardboard and tape. And today was a perfect example. The garbage was still out there at almost 2 o'clock today. We just couldn't get to it. We finally got to it around 2 o'clock. It sat on Main Street all day. It just looks terrible. So that's the main reason, and it's the increase in recycling that is causing this, of course, which is a good thing. So,
and we pick up garbage the other 4 days of the week.
That was my other question.
yes, we pick up garbage on Main Street 4 days a week.
What about the street bins themselves? You know, like the wicker bins. Are they garbage cans?
Our plan is to keep an eye on those, and if it's necessary, we'll get out there and get them done. That's the way we do it on the weekends now. We know which weekends we have to pick up garbage and which weekends some we can let go. Now, there's not too many we let go completely, but some days we pick them up on Saturday, and some days we'll do it on a Sunday. And if there's a holiday, it's usually in the middle. So, and the other thing is, when the weekend comes, you know, the last pickup on Main Street would be on Friday. We're back again on Monday, so there's 2 days, no one's complaining. When there's a 3-day holiday, whether it's a Monday or a Friday, it's the same scenario. And then once a year, we have the Thanksgiving holiday, which is actually 4 days off, so. It doesn't seem to be a problem.
And we have the memo that I think was sent to everyone.
Well, I didn't send it.
Okay, so I was going to say, because I saw the October 26th.
Yeah, I didn't
so I was
send
like,
it yet.
As a draft.
I was like, I go immediately, it's already happened, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think, so the idea is that we're going to reach out to all the,
And we'll roll it out.
the property owners.
I mean, does it make sense? My only concern is that there's something we're missing here, that, you know, there's not enough storage. Your argument that there are already 2-day, you know, the weekend,
Right.
and you would think that some of the places, like the restaurants, would have the most business over the weekend and therefore have the heaviest load, but.
Well, we say we're not gonna pick up the garbage, we still plan to pick up the cardboard. Cardboard is a big thing on Main Street businesses.
And that would be just Wednesday?
Boxes. Oh, that would be every day.
Every day, there's,
Yeah,
cardboard
eventually we'd like to phase that into Wednesday, but, you know,
That would be a lot.
They get deliveries every day of the week, so.
Exactly.
We'll ease into that part of it.
Yeah, as Brian said, we'd like to ease into that later.
Is there,
One step at a time.
Sorry, what you said that was really good, is that part of the reason for this is that there's more recycling? That's good.
Yes.
That's good.
There is, recycling is increasing, not just in the co-mingled and pulp, but the yard waste recycling, the bulk recycling, just the residents are responding to the initiative to recycle.
Sounds good.
So did you have any contact with any of the merchants on Main Street with this idea? Or have we gotten any feedback about the
Well,
possibility?
they don't really know about it yet.
They don't, right.
But we don't anticipate a problem. And, you know, we're very flexible. If somebody does have a problem and gives us a call, we'll take care of it.
Well, that leads me to my two suggestions, if there are. One of which is, can we bill this as a trial rather than, we're gonna try this for a couple months and see how it impacts your businesses. I don't know what, just give a soft way out if there's a big impact that we can't foresee. And the second one would be just publish the fact that they can contact you if they have a problem. Maybe you don't need those suspenders, but one of them would probably be good.
I don't think you need to formally designate it as a trial. I mean, we can change things back whenever we need to.
Well, how about having a contact number if you've got issues? Put that in, so
The thing on here is email or call, so.
that's if you have any questions. I mean, that's not as practical as like, if the garbage is.
I can put a sentence in there if you have a special situation or something,
Yeah,
give us a
that would
call.
be good.
I think that would be good, because then it seems.
Especially in the short term, that they suddenly get all of their deliveries are on Tuesday, so they have to dump everything on Friday, Wednesday.
Well, that's mostly cardboard. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Could I make one suggestion? Oh my goodness. But you might want to add that sentence that we're still going to pick up cardboard. Because if I read this, it's not so clear to me that you're still going to be picking up cardboard downtown.
Okay.
The cardboard pickup remains the same or something. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Otherwise, I think it's, makes sense. It's maybe a second thing, so we free up the guys to do something else, but we'll see how this goes.
That's part of it.
So, the only part, everything we talked about is great. The only thing I heard that it makes me a little concerned, you said there was an increase in yard waste.
Yeah, that leaves this year. We have a lot more bags of leaves than we did in the past couple of years.
Really, less people.
Less people are having it taken away or mulching it. Well, I don't know. I don't know who's doing what.
Right.
All I know is that we are getting a lot of leaf bags.
So that will impact our tipping fees.
Yes, it will.
A little more education on
I wonder
mulching.
how much, the weather's been really odd, and, right when you think it's time to pick up the leaves, we just had this torrential rain that makes it impossible to deal with it right now. So, just a lot of weird circumstances, but I wonder how much is also the educational component has.
Yeah,
It's so
yeah.
really.
We stopped
You
getting
know, there are a lot of new people. We did so many of those workshops. And that's now, how many, it's like
3 years ago, yeah.
and there were so many articles in the paper about how to mulch with your mower and everything. And I guess you have to keep that up to get the message
I
out.
actually saw a thing on Yahoo about that.
Oh, yeah?
And they did say that it was initiated in Irvington, New York.
Yay.
It was pretty cool.
Good. Well, maybe we just need another round, I hate to say that, but another educational round or another part of your mayor's letter maybe, just.
Or a link to the Yahoo.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Well, actually, if you sent me that link, I would post it on,
I'll see if it's still on here. It was a couple of weeks ago. So.
if it's there, let me know, and I'll try to
Okay.
snapshot it and get it linked in.
Otherwise, hopefully it's a good trial, and, I think it makes sense. We have to obviously, let people know it's gonna happen, and then we'll see how it goes.
All the people who are watching.
Very good.
So what date do you think we were gonna do this, like next week, or
Yes.
we
as
have to
soon
get
as
the letters
possible.
out?
Yeah, we gotta.
Get the notice
do
out.
it.
I'll revise it. We'll get it out
The
there.
week after Thanksgiving, probably, right?
Very soon.
Thank you.
The weekend.
Thanks for bringing it to us, I think it's a good discussion.
No garbage pickup on Wednesday.
While I have you guys, I would just like to say that the Hudson View Park drainage and curb job is done.
It's done.
And
Oh.
we're really proud of it. It came out really good. We added 3 catch basins. We rebuilt one. The only reason we rebuilt it was a kind of gas line going through it that we didn't want to go through moving that. And we replaced 13 catch basins with precast catch basins, as well as the 3 new ones we put in. 1,135 feet of 12-inch drainage pipe we replaced. It was all rotten.
Wow.
And the curbing, we put in 4,017 feet of curb.
Whoa.
So very successful, and it looks great.
And how did it work with the rain?
Pardon?
How did it work with the rain?
It worked great.
It rained and it worked.
It actually worked great. Not only does it look good, but it worked good, but it worked good.
It's all connected then, that's good. But, no, that's great, 'cause that's been a, an area that's very susceptible to flooding, and we think a lot of it was going to run into a small pipe that couldn't handle it and back up, et cetera, so hopefully this is great for that neighborhood, because I know it's been something that it's been an issue for decades.
And once we get the culvert done down at the bottom,
Right, oh, that's
it's
awesome.
really gonna help things. So.
Great. Great, good news.
Tell us more. I like the news.
No early snowstorms?
We'll start some new projects.
Okay, we're waiting, holding our breath. It's great.
Thanks
Thank
very
you
much.
for-
Good luck on the Wednesdays.
You guys have at it.
Good luck on the next snow, it's, when?
Thank you.
Can't wait.
Thanks,
Right, great.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Good to see you. My next item is the design workshop for proposed parking lot intersection improvements near 50 Buckout Street, the Astor Buck project. Yeah, this is obviously something that we've discussed on and off for the last couple of years. We haven't heard anything in a while from Astor Buck. We actually haven't seen a new plan, a new anything. So we understand that they do have a new plan. We obviously wanted to get the most affected neighbors involved as early as possible. So you're gonna kind of see the rollout of the plan. When we see the rollout of the plan, we invite all of you to come speak and, let's hear your thoughts. I think that, we've, as a board of trustees, we've kind of looked at it quite a bit, and we think that there are a lot of positives to it. So if we can, kind of make it a positive program, project for the whole area, with, the hearing from the input from the residents as well. That's kind of the goal of what we're trying to accomplish here. I don't know if you want to set it up a little more, Larry.
No, yeah, that's great, but that's pretty much it. I think we just need
We get good enough seats,
to
but
shift things around here.
For the benefit of our new neighbors who just bought the house at 79 South Buckhouse, maybe you could just give a little history lesson. I mean,
And where we're at in the process, because I don't know if zoning's been changed or.
nothing's happened. We've, only thing that's happened is we've heard proposals for about the last 2 years, I'd say, on and off, kind of moving along and then not moving along. We actually haven't heard from the applicant in 6 months or so.
Well, we went back to the drawing board when it was suggested to make a comprehensive project, the building facade, the parking lot, the sidewalks, everything from the far south tip of our property on Buckout Street all the way to the restaurant. So we took a comprehensive look at the entire piece that we have. That would be.
Yeah, so it might not be step one in the process, it's kind of step one again, where nothing's been, we haven't done it, nothing's been decided. It's all pretty much open. And I think the other part of the background is, one of the complaints we've gotten quite often is when they redid a lot of the trend building, big time fill. So there's been a lot of kids pulling cars into the neighborhoods, which we've had problems with. There's existing safety issues in the area because of lack of sidewalks, because of the intersection that was probably made for horses and carriages as opposed to cars. So when they proposed something like this to take some cars off the road, we said, well, there are a lot of other things, including pedestrian safety, traffic safety, road crossings, all those types of things. And we are literally seeing this for the first time.
quick question, Mayor Smith, just on process, where's the planning board at with did they finish and is there a?
No, they sent us a letter that 3 of them opposed it, 1 wasn't around, and 1 supports the concept of adding parking. But that's really it from them so far.
From a process standpoint, the subject property that we're talking about where the parking lot would go, does need to be rezoned, so it's the Board of Trustees that has to do that. And so the Board of Trustees is studying the impact of that rezoning and of the construction of the parking lot. In addition, there is a lot that is owned by the village, which is right in the middle of all this.
Piece right here.
And so it would also involve the sale of that lot or the exchange of the lot or some transaction involving that lot in order for the parking lot to be built. That's in the purview of the Board of Trustees, so.
Is that lot used currently for tenants of your building?
It's not used at all.
It's not used at all? It's vacant.
It's all vacant.
So one of the things that comes across is at some point, and I don't necessarily mean tonight, but I'd like to be able to, as a board, review the planning board's letter to us, just to make sure that we've up to speed with the issues that they brought up.
Sure, and I think also Patrick's here tonight, who's the chair of the planning board. So, basically it's the first you've seen it as well.
Yes.
So, maybe things have changed, maybe you're more critical of it, less critical of it, or stay exactly the same. So, we'll look for you to, again, share your thoughts and the thoughts of the board in general, so.
One other thing, though, just remember that it's not only rezoning, you need to amend the master plan, because the master plan calls for this lot to be residential, not commercial. Okay, so there are two things that.
Yeah.
It's 9 lots, am I correct? Is it?
But yes, what do you mean, that, if you look at the 2003 master plan, that entire area, it was zoned, the master plan called for it to remain residential as a buffer between this commercial area and the surrounding residential area.
Exactly. We didn't buy a house in a commercial district, we bought a house in a residential district.
And, we would have, had we made a decision to live in a commercial zone, we would have made that decision when we bought our homes. I mean, that's our obvious concern. Also, once you change zoning, zoning doesn't revert. So if you change the zoning of this area from 9 residential lots to 1 commercial lot.
Let's say, let's back up and say, we've done a couple zoning changes since I've been on the board. I have a very high bar for changing zoning because it's very serious. So the benefit to me has to completely outweigh the zoning change and the benefit to the village. So we'll see if they reach that bar. So I have a very high bar. That's one reason continuum didn't happen for me, because I didn't see the benefit. And that's I have to be overwhelmed by what the benefits are.
Wait, you understand our concern.
Absolutely.
This is we bought these homes. This is our largest investment.
And in my opinion, there's a plan we can do here that will not just, get them a parking lot, which I've heard a lot of people say, but I think you can increase the value of your property, because I think you can you can improve the entire view, flow, everything of that area.
Increase the value of my property. I want the value of my property to be.
I understand that, but I think we can do more than that, in my opinion. I think there can be a lot of improvements in this area that, frankly, I heard some people say that, this is going to create a lot of traffic. What created a lot of additional traffic and parking down there was when they came in, they invested, and they improved the building that was kind of let be run down for 20 years. So a lot of the traffic has already been created, because, so
those were commercial zones, correct?
It was in 2003, the same master plan changed it to the business zoning, without, I think really studying the impact of parking and things like that. It used to be industrial. Industrial uses obviously have a lot less parking because you have big machines around people. When that was done in 2003, it changed a lot of things. There was a second piece of it that was going to redo the waterfront, all these other things that didn't happen. But so we're kind of left with that change of zoning from industrial to business. So now we're trying to say, well, we've already heard that there's, pedestrian safety issues, there's traffic issues, there's parking issues. So let's see if there's a way we can address those issues that are before us.
Look, I don't think any of us are closed-minded about improving.
Sure, and that's the purpose of tonight.
Our obvious concern is, my concern is that I haven't had experience in real estate. When you change a zone, the zoning doesn't
Absolutely.
Morph into something else. When you change a residential lot into a commercial lot, the use of that lot can be whatever wants to do.
Or you can restrict it to parking. You can just things you can do. But let's hear the presentations. We haven't heard or seen it
To
yet.
know who everybody is here.
Yeah. Then after we hear the presentation, we'll let you
I
guys.
think that's a much better idea. Let's hear what we're talking about.
And can I just ask one last thing before we hear what he's talking about? Have we explored alternatives, or is this it? Is this the only option here? Is that?
This is the owner. This is our option.
Okay.
we could put affordable housing in if you'd like. You know, there's 9 months
That's
there,
a great idea.
you know.
That sounds great to me.
I don't want to do that, I'm not a residential guy. So we bought this property in '09 as an existing non-conforming site. We're trying to fix it. You know, we own it. I didn't create an existing non-conforming situation. That happened over the last 50 years. The building's already there.
That you bought a commercial, you didn't buy a commercial lot, you bought residential lot. That's great. And the lots that are in question now are.
This is all part of the same piece of property, right? No, this is private. I own this.
But
Okay.
that's
But that's residential zoning.
I was just wondering if we could back up a minute and just at least get English through here. I mean, we haven't even.
Why don't you introduce yourself, though, and explain who from your team's
So
here?
this is Bill
I'm Bill
Thompson.
Thompson. I'm the managing member of Astrobuck Properties, who owns all this real estate.
All right, and
Paul Petretti is my engineer. He's right here.
Petretti.
John Canning is the traffic consultant we hired. We've worked at this, and in connection with this, we have a company called North River Architects that's working on the facade of the building. They're not here tonight. We had an idea a number of years ago that we could alleviate a lot of parking in the neighborhood, because there's a lot of parking on the streets, by making this a parking lot. So we started down the road looking at that, and we hit some resistance and a lot of concerns from the village. And the biggest concern in the village was pedestrian traffic, and what I would call a little bit of maybe a wild driving traffic situation. This is really wide in here, and people have a tendency to fly through here, not pay attention to stop signs. It can be fairly dangerous. This is the typical path where people walk to the train station. So, and it is a benefit to us and to the village. I think it benefits everybody. We came up with what we think is a parking solution, a traffic pattern, and a pedestrian pattern, along with the facade improvement program that should, we feel, benefit everybody. It's got to be a win for everybody. So we think that we've accomplished that, or we've come close, given certain details. So, John, you want to talk about traffic flow? Sure. And circulation?
Well, can you, before you, I'm sorry,
Yeah. Go ahead.
Bill, can you just give us a overview of the changes or the site?
Since we saw it.
And then John could get into the traffic stuff.
We had a rendering done of a parking area that was done by A&M
Yeah.
that wasn't buildable. When I took it to Paul Petretti, he says, you can't do this. This is, engineering wise, this is not feasible. He says, let me look at it. So he started going through it, and what he came up with from there is a two-level parking lot. This piece, the blue, would be accessed off of Buckhouse Street over here. The yellow piece, which would be an elevation, this is a topo, so you can see the different elevations. The yellow piece would be entered from here, from our property here. So it's stepped, terraced, if you will.
Oh, I see, and is that like a footbridge over, that with the blue?
Yeah, Paul proposed a footbridge into this is the staircase, this little bump out.
Yeah.
Put a little footbridge into that staircase.
Okay, so there would be accessing the lower level by coming into the existing driveway then?
Correct.
Bill, this pink one-way entrance road, that exists now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's a way to get into the lower level of the parking?
That circulates around our
Yeah,
building.
that I know that road.
That's the
Okay.
same one, that doesn't change.
Okay,
There's quite a steep grade change.
Right, I
in,
know.
on that hillside.
Right, big time.
so to get in
We're
here,
using that to our advantage and to screen the parking from the residents.
to get into, even down here?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
No, to get in here, you go off the driveway here. Okay. And this is this very, very steep slope right here.
Well, it's currently
Yeah.
steep, yeah.
Right,
Just
right.
remind us, what's there now?
That's all the blue expanse, what is
There-
that?
There's waste, shrubs, some,
Trees.
trees.
Trees, birds, you know, things that live.
Wait,
Sorry. Wait. But it's kind of like that.
Mostly invasive species trees. With that tree survey down on it, but
But I'm saying it's not manicured property. Like
No,
it
it's not
was-
manicured.
What are they invading, the trees?
the black locusts, they're on the invasive species list.
Well, there's Atlantis as well, and
Yeah.
lots of poison ivy, so I mean, it's not maintained. It's, call it scrub woods more than,
Yeah, there you go.
so, it's different than whatever characterization.
Yeah, it's not a ball field.
It's not,
Is there any screening that's going to, any kind of landscaping or screening that's going to be put in here?
Yes, you know, if this moves forward, we're gonna hire in Atchison to do all the landscaping and all the screening for the whole site.
You could probably put,
The parking lot will drop down, so.
well, this parking lot will be invisible because it's gonna be below this one. And you could probably, every like 6 spaces, you could put a tree pit instead of a car, and then you can have a tree, so you'll have a canopy, so you can't really see the parking lot.
This will be 6 or 8 feet below the street level.
As well, yeah.
Yes,
8.
8.
Wait, so the blue will be
The blue will
below
be 8
street
feet
level?
below street level. You won't see it. When you stand on the street, you'll see
Okay,
it
you
over
won't
top
see the
there.
cars.
Excuse me?
You won't see the cars.
No, you'll be seeing over top.
And you'll have trees high enough to block the stadium lights from the park. That's-
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the elevations on that.
Yeah, but that would be, ideal.
Yeah.
For the.
You mean the lights in scenic Hudson?
And let me ask you,
Yeah, them now.
The current
who's
lights.
going to use the parking lot? This is another concern.
Excuse me?
I have. Who are the users of this parking?
It would be,
The
for
tenants of the.
for tenants of the building and for the residents on weekends and nights.
Not the residential building,
But
He gets the residential building, not the residential building. The people who are in the,
he asked who would use the parking. I said the tenants of the office building.
yeah, I know.
Commercial space.
Why don't we maybe,
Commercial space.
why don't we maybe let him finish the presentation? We can ask our questions and we'll open up to you guys for as long as you want to ask.
Right.
If you need paper to write them down or a pen, let us know, so you don't forget them.
So, the last time we were here, Mark had said, where's the sidewalks? I want to see the connection. You wanted to see all in one piece. So, we brought the sidewalk to the end of our property. This crosswalk matches, Paul,
Yes,
with the sidewalk on this side of the property.
yes, between
On
the
this side.
driveways, there's,
Right, so people can walk down here, cross here, and have a clear path of traffic from here to,
all the way down.
all the way down to
Yeah.
pedestrian.
And there is no sidewalk there now.
Well, there's a piece of sidewalk on this side.
Right, like from here to here.
There's nothing here on this side at all.
Can I answer this? You see the brown strip which constitutes the sidewalk? In order to make this work, get the geometry to work, and keep the parking that is presently there, and get the lane geometry correct, that sidewalk is actually going to have to go onto Astor-Brook's property, okay? Because it's a 4.5-foot wide sidewalk. So that would have to go onto the property.
Well, I guess just to make it work all the way through, the sidewalk is gonna travel between Astor-Brook's property and the village property and back and forth a little bit to make sure that all the math works, that Paul's talking about, that all the driving lane widths are correct. And, we're not looking at that as a problem from our side.
We just need an easement so that
Right.
everybody would have the authority to do what they needed to.
Right.
Paul, I don't understand what you just said. I didn't really hear you very well, but you said something about the width of the sidewalks?
So the brown strip constitutes a sidewalk as it's laid out, I did have it in brown color. What I'm trying to convey the message is that this is the property line. And to get the geometry, perfect with roads, okay, we're gonna have to put that sidewalk actually on the Astor-Brook property, okay? This is elevation 50 over here, and we're going down to about elevation 41. This is elevation 49, so this will be a retaining wall in here, okay? So you won't, from the street, you won't see this parking in here, because it's gonna be 7 or 8 feet lower. And this area, this is another retaining wall system. So here's the retaining wall system. There'll be one here, goes like this, goes all the way down there. There'll be another retaining wall in here, and then another retaining wall in here. Retaining walls are required to drop that parking area down. okay, and then this is a second level, which you could also put a third level of parking underneath that if you build this as a structure.
So Paul, I have a question. The one major thing that I'm not seeing is a planting area on the west side of the parking lot. There's no buffer there now, there's sidewalk.
West side of Parkland?
West.
East
East
Sorry,
side.
east side of the parking lot, there's a sidewalk.
So it's a retaining wall, but not a,
Before there was like maybe anywhere from a 8-foot to a 3-foot wide buffer strip that was planned. So what I'm trying to get at is this, I'm not sure what the screening is happening, where it happens. You're gonna obviously have to have a fence. I assume it's gonna be a nice looking, you know, quasi ironwork fence of whatever ilk or something that's gonna be on top of that retaining wall, but I don't see any green.
Yeah, I think the person that laid it out had come up with like something that thought would work, but to try to get this all to work, you can't fit all this, you know, it's like trying to put, 5 pounds of potatoes in a 2-pound sack.
I know that one of the, the point I want to make is one of the key aspects of the thing was the landscaping to basically buffer the community from the parking lot. And what we got now is the parking lot and no buffer.
We can do that.
It seems to me that you should be able to slide it back.
Yeah, we can do that.
How would you do that, John?
We can, basically, the way parking spaces work is typically they're 9 feet wide by 40 feet deep, but you can shrink that 40 feet just like we did in the aqueduct lot by making the spaces a little bit wider so that you have enough room to pull into them. The spaces in the aqueduct lot used to be 8.5 feet and they were angled. And so myself, and I think Larry, you may have gone up with me, and Chief Cerrone at the time.
Yeah, it wasn't me,
Was it Steve?
before me.
Yeah. And we widened the spaces out a little bit, made them perpendicular. It's narrower than it should be. We got 6 more spaces and it works. So we can certainly do it.
Well, we're talking about probably needing, I would think for really anything for a viable, like a tree planting area, you'd certainly want it to be a minimum of 3 feet, maybe 4 to 5 feet if you could.
I was thinking 3 feet, right? And I'm thinking
That's going to be very tight.
I'm thinking the fence, there's a nice hedgerow, and then you can take a couple of the parking spaces in here and space them out. And instead of having parking spaces, you can have a tree pit, and the trees then grow up over the wall. Obviously we need to get a landscape architect to work with us, or Ann Atchison, but it's really part of the details if we can figure out the important elements.
That is the important element.
Well, we can.
To me, that's a showstopper on the spot. I love everything conceptually, but if we're not providing screening to the neighborhood except on the southern end of the thing, then it doesn't matter that this thing is sunken down.
so is this strip where the blue ends to the south, that last chunk before the old line, is that part of Astorbook property?
This is our property, yeah, this is a buffer zone.
So that is a buffer zone?
Yeah, so that's on the
Okay,
south.
all right.
But now, what elevation is that? If the blue is lower, it's below ground level, and that's where the parking is gonna go, that white strip, that's your buffer zone there.
That's going to follow the existing topography, and then the wall is going to cut off so that you can cut in to provide the parking. So this will be exactly what it is.
And what is it now? It sounds pretty
Well,
low.
it goes from 49 feet down to.
Yeah, you can walk into it like this, and then it angles down.
And what's on it now?
It's-
Is this where the scrub trees are?
Yes.
Same thing as everything else.
So this is something that could be
Improved.
Can be whatever.
and re-landscape, so you're not losing that.
You're not losing that, and you could improve it.
It's dropping, in that one area, it's dropping over 15
That can be
feet.
lifted up. So
Yeah, it could be, I guess, if you did a retaining wall in the rear.
You could do that too, if
So that could be improved, but not improved in a way that the neighbors wouldn't like it. I know we talked once about benches, and that was like, oh no, there'll be noise and people. So thinking about that buffer and what works in the neighborhood, I think, is important.
Okay.
So can you talk us around the rest of the building?
Yeah,
so that we
let's
should
see.
understand what the different colored
Go
areas
ahead, you
are?
can talk to us, traffic circle.
So obviously, providing the parking is going to take parking off the street, which is a good thing because it's kind of narrow here. When you have parking, you kind of have to yield to oncoming traffic, which is typical of many of the streets of the neighborhood. Then from there, obviously, you have a sidewalk, so that people who now walk down and kind of, if you stay on this side, you've got to go up here, so many people just cut across and walk down this side of the road where there is no sidewalk, so they'll be on a sidewalk, which is a
John, I'm
plus.
sorry, I don't understand. You say parking is taken off the street, but there's street parking shown in the
Well,
diagram. So
we can eliminate it, but what I'm saying is that people who park here will be parking in here. So there'll be,
Won't people still park there though?
they can park there if they want, but they won't need to because they have
But
parking.
they will, because
okay, anyway, so we still have street parking. That's all I wanted to know.
Yes, we're not proposing to eliminate it, we're just saying we're easing the parking deficit.
Yes.
The problem that we found, I think, traditionally was on some of the side streets, there was a great deal of parking that was connected to Bridge Street properties, and the parking was on those very narrow, I don't know, Maple and some of the other names along there, and they were creating a real hazard. And that was one of the first times we understood that that neighborhood had a lot of parking for a lot of hours that were not people in the neighborhood. And that was one of the things that got us, I don't know how many years ago, actually, we started thinking about that, but that was a problem that we heard about.
So that's what the parking space will alleviate.
Yep.
And then the sidewalk will provide a safer and improved environment for pedestrians.
And the sidewalk goes all the way down to in front of,
The Red Barn,
to the corner of Red Barn.
correct.
What's the net increase in parking spaces by doing this?
So
You're adding all.
45.
45.
Is it 45?
Unless some go away because of trees.
46. You got 31 plus 4 handicap
So
lots.
35, what's it there?
And then over here, you're gonna have 1, 3,
30.
24?
It's 15 plus.
15 and 31, I
Yeah,
see.
there's 18 here.
So how many is that?
And then there's couple here. This is the handicap.
40,
It's
35,
40.
42.
40, 45.
Approximately 40.
Yeah.
40, and these are parking spaces that simply don't exist now?
Correct.
Okay.
Right, there is no parking anywhere here, no, correct.
No, that's not true.
There's a few spaces here.
We're removing the parking that's here, that's,
There's probably 8 vehicles parked along here on the side of
in
this.
that case, maybe 35.
Okay, so, all right, let's just use that as number 35. And do we have any idea, let me rephrase that, do you have an idea, Bill, of how many cars need to be parked every day to come to the building?
No, it's fluid.
Depending on your tenant?
Yeah, there's a lot of tenants, I mean, there's a lot of workforce net right now that's, a day or 2 or 3 work from home, so it's, it moves all the time.
Depending on
Usually a day or 2 a week that's very heavy,
Okay.
and a couple of days that are very light.
What I'm getting at is like, so this is not necessarily going to completely solve the problem
Oh, no.
of residents parking on the street. It's
No.
just gonna provide a net gain of 30 plus
Right.
spots. But the parking needs of your tenants might vary depending on who your tenants are.
Right, well, the building's full right now, and, and that whole parking formula it isn't what it used to be. You used to be able to understand that you'd be able to allocate 125% of your lot out, and you'd still be able to maintain parking. It's not like that anymore, because of the work from home and job sharing and all that. It's very hard to get a handle on these days for me. But we're still have a deficit. We definitely have a deficit. This is a start to fix it. This is the only opportunity we have to do it. We don't have any other land to do it with. There's no structures in town, so we can't build a structure. We don't know of any other way to fix it.
So the,
We lost 35 spots from Metro North. They took them away from us, the ones we ran
that's what I was just gonna ask
Whoa,
you.
when was that?
2 months ago.
So right now, the problem's worse because you've lost the 35 spots in
Right.
So basically, doing this would put it back to where it has been with the 35 Metro North spots.
Yeah.
Is there some explanation or some anticipation that those Metro North spots would be offered again?
The parking list, the waiting list for Metro North grew, and some people called and complained, and they called us and said, you know, those 35 spots, at least you would have to take them back. And within 30 days, they're gone.
Because I remember, I guess in the recession, there were excess spots down there.
That's when they rented them.
Yeah, right. In 09, 10,
Why we walked
11.
away from doing this is because we had the ability to rent them.
Yeah,
So,
so it's good for the economy, I guess.
just going to go back to the numbers, I don't know why you're saying 35, Bill, because subtracting out the handicap spots, it's 31 and 15, unless I'm missing something.
Right.
So that would be 46.
There's parking all along here currently that we're losing.
Yeah, but you said 8. So 46 minus 8 is,
Plus the 46, I didn't count them.
yeah, it's 46 not counting.
Yeah,
The
so
handicap.
it's
There's
38.
a couple for the entrance.
You gotta lose the entrance here,
There's probably a couple of.
and you lose a
I'm
couple.
counting the numbers right here. So
There's some street parking.
Mark, if this moves forward, the numbers are going to change up and down a little bit
yeah,
anyway.
I'm just trying to get a sense of what the number's higher, because there's actually like
So maybe it's 40.
46 spots or something like that.
It's in the 40 ballpark, 40, 45,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna also talk about the traffic flow.
Right.
That would be changed.
So in addition to the sidewalk, right now, it's, probably 55 feet wide, and when you come around the corner from this way, cars sort of swing over and don't slow down before turning into Station Road. So basically what we're proposing to do is to narrow up the street a little bit on the west side, put a median and some parking on the east side, so that when you come up here, you can't swing across, you've got to slow down and turn. Put a stop sign on the crosswalk in here. So basically, we're going to slow traffic down as it goes through here. It will still have the capacity to accommodate the vehicular demand, but people just won't be flying through it, and you'll have crosswalks with pedestrian refuges, and so it'll provide a safer, calmer environment.
It's a very wide intersection, which
Yeah.
makes it unsafe.
Right.
About 2 months ago, we started notifying our tenants that, I'm not sure what the exact number is, but we don't want to accept trucks onto the facility any larger than X. And it's something that comes out to, the load that comes out to right around here, so they're not sticking out into the street like they currently do. I guess you understand that. We're working on that. That's a process that's gonna take some time to train them and to get the truckers that come to the building to understand that we can't do this anymore. This traffic pattern will help that. They won't be able to get in and out.
So the median, so you cross halfway, and then there's space to
Right, so
wait.
you can cross one half at a time, rather than having to sort of run across all 55 feet with two-way traffic.
And then that median has landscaping on it, or,
At this point, it was contemplated that it would be,
We haven't
brick paver
contemplated
or
that.
something like that, stamped concrete.
I haven't thought about
But we can work on, we can.
I mean, it might impede the views, I don't know, but, some professional would know that, but, making it, greener might be attractive.
What is this little piece of Zwicky right here?
Double yellow line to
The
the
fishery.
island.
This line here, what is that?
That is just paved area at this point. Paul basically was showing the travel path, the lane.
Yeah,
So when you go from this side of the intersection across to this side, it widens up to accommodate a parking lane in the median. So this is just pavement. So this whole area basically is paved.
You have to be able to make the left there.
You have to be able to turn this way and turn this way.
Right.
So it's the intersection.
I mean, that could be a different textured surface if you like.
no, I think it's an issue, it would be different texture. I think these are ideal travel lanes. I think that area still looks to me like,
It's a little big, yeah.
it's,
We can certainly,
I'm not sure that it's gonna be so clean,
We
like
could
the
look at-
drivers will conform to those.
Well, we kind of stopped here
Yeah,
because we didn't know what you guys wanted to do.
yeah, I think it has to be thought through a little
We'll be
bit, so,
glad to go into that further.
Yeah.
But am I right, just as on that area, looking at it, is there any parking there now? Does this simply separate the parking?
There is parking on, yes,
Parking,
yes.
it just separates the two sides of the
Oh,
street.
sorry.
right.
No, sorry.
So there's parking on both sides now, and the parking on the west side, we're just taking it and shifting it next to the median.
Gotcha, okay.
Now, So the pink travel lane, which is headed south.
Correct.
right?
Yep.
So that, it's the same, essentially the same travel lane width that you have now, except you're pushing it up against
Well,
the new sidewalk.
not really, frankly, because right now you've got parking, it's about 55 feet, so if you take off 15 feet for parking, you're left with 40 feet, so you have 40 feet wide open for two-way traffic. So we're turning it into, I think it's like a 12-foot lane and a 12-foot lane, which narrower lanes mean people typically drive slower, particularly when they have cars next to them.
It's still two rows of parking, so then that extra space is actually being used for sidewalk and landscaping.
Yes.
Yeah, on either side of the sidewalk, okay.
Yes.
So obviously the parking is striped so that they know what they're trying to.
Absolutely.
Yes. Trying to get rid of this.
So the little bumped out road that comes off of, when you come down Station Road, if you turn a hard left or south, there is a little bumped out.
This?
Yeah, that's,
Right.
I know that current, I mean, I walk there, of course.
Yep.
I've seen that, but that stays exactly the way it is.
We gave a fair amount of thought to that. If you ever go down there and look
I
at it,
do.
you see pretty much always the cars are parked pointing in this direction, right? Which indicates that people drive it this way much more, in fact, probably all the time. One of the concepts was that, if you guys were interested, maybe we should just make it one way this way so that people don't come down and go down that way occasionally. But, other than that, we didn't want to sort of start interfering with the people who live here too much. We're certainly open to discussing it if you have some ideas.
And there's a little, not road and not sidewalk area,
Median.
yeah, that's that
yeah.
part.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
that's slow.
just, that's just a slope
It's a
right now.
grassy slope.
And that's public, street,
I believe it
that's
is.
village street,
Yes.
and that little grassy area is village, so that could be improved. I mean, it could be.
Yeah, it's pretty steep though,
It would depend on what you want to do there.
I mean, just,
Part of the issue is maintenance. I mean, if you want to put something in there, then you have to maintain it. I guess the village already mows it, right?
I assume so. We should ask
It looks,
Greg when
it
he's
looks
here.
low, so.
I assume so.
I mean, I'm just thinking of all ways in which if you can add more green, in the area.
You could take it and terrace it, make it
Yeah.
some sort of a, like a flower garden or something like that.
No, that's higher maintenance.
Yeah, that's
But
even more.
that's the issue.
But yeah, I
Maintenance
mean, but there
issue.
are low maintenance things, and we'll ask Mark, he always has ideas.
This green strip here, is this going to be new landscaping or that's existing?
Listen, I have a better
Paul,
solution, but
I believe,
you're not gonna like it.
Paul and Bill, so the question is this area here going to be new green strip? Most of it right now is pavement, except for by the corner.
Yeah.
So certainly some of it is going to be newly landscaped. Is this going to continue to be an access for
That's undetermined. Part of the concept is to improve the facade of the building and create.
Right now, there's an access to the building here that you can get to from South Buckhead Street.
Right,
So that the
there's
loading docks
the,
is going on.
These cars
the
here.
entrance to yoga, zone or yoga is right in that corner there, there's steps that go up, it's barely right there, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what you're fiddling with that, but anyway, it's interesting to see the facade.
So the concept kind is to there's two loading docks and an entranceway. What we want to do is get rid of one of the loading docks, excavate it out, and put a courtyard underneath, something like,
Oh, under,
yeah, something like this. Conceptually, I mean, it's not real thought out, but Island Fisher has rented all this space. And to do this below, and to get rid of one of the loading docks, and get rid of the existing entrance, and just put a little bridge over the top, and make one a loading dock and one a pedestrian entrance, and try to bring this facade back to something that's more attractive than it is right now. It's been let go for all these years. This architect had a concept of doing a metal structure here that was similar in nature to the other side of the building, but since, that's concrete and Gothic, this is more steel and industrial, but just to kind of tie them together some way.
This is not in front of this board, by the way. I mean,
Right,
You're not
this
being
is a
asked to
planning
approve
board.
it.
No, you're not.
Right, no, but we needed to know.
I think you want to see the whole picture.
Yeah, no, this is
FYI.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, that's part of that's one of we wanted to make it so when you come down here, or you come through here, this whole place looks better and safer.
But we understand that screening of the parking is the critical issue, I think, from the board's perspective and the neighbors.
Well, I think for the neighbors, everyone's been concerned quite a bit, but it seems like from what I heard tonight, and recalled some of the emails and comments in the past, there's a concern for screening in both directions, believe it or not. There's a concern for screening of the parking lot itself from South Buckout, but the impact of removing the taller trees, whether they're invasive and weed-like trees not being maintained, they're still blocking the lights from Scenic Hudson.
What if I did that on the roof?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's the thing, is if we could provide some screening from that direction, I don't know what it looks like, but the thought is that having that green removed would expose the
I
lights.
don't know the answer to this, but there's a possibility of me screening it up here on the side.
Yeah, exactly.
We could certainly go out and take
We could look at that.
here and see.
Well, is this area going to be all paved back toward the ruins?
Well, it's
What are the
It's
ruins?
down.
I don't know what,
It says ruins on there.
Paul wrote that.
Yeah, well, okay, there's a piece of a foundation.
Yeah.
So,
Where's ruins? Oh, ruins down here.
We're not gonna try to mention it.
so I guess what I'm wondering is,
We're gonna take them out.
does that whole level have to be paved? I guess that's the question.
I don't know the answer to that. If we could, but that's what I just asked him, is there any way we could put screening in here? And he said he has answers for it, he doesn't want to, he wants to go through it first though.
Yeah. Safer.
Yeah.
It seems like you could construct some kind of a planting area without necessarily impacting.
I'm sure we can figure that out and answer it. I'm just not there today.
Bill, how many tenants do you have in the building now?
30.
And you're fully occupied now?
There's one spot that's available that we're not renting.
Do you have a model of, based on your experience now, how many parking spaces do you think you need? You said it was impossible to use the old numbers, but do you have a sense now of what your building actually requires?
I think if we had 125 more spots for this building, it would be.
Above and beyond this, or just?
Total. And that would be able to get rid of the rest of the Metro North spots.
Wait, I'm sorry, do you still have some Metro North spots?
Yes.
How many? You still have 35?
Yeah, we rented 70, we lost them.
Okay, so you have no guarantee that they'll let you keep the other 35?
They're essentially gone too.
Okay. So this is 35 spots or so, and you would probably need approximately another 90?
I mean, if this was,
That is still going to be on the street?
yeah, we're holding off renting one piece. We just aren't gonna do it because, we're just using it for storage. But,
You really have that many cars coming into the area?
it depends on the day, Mark. It's,
Because what's the parking now in the rear? Is that like 40,
there's
50
about
spots?
70 back there.
Oh.
We have a phase 2 idea of doing parking back there. We're not ready to, I don't think that needs, board of trustee approval, so we didn't want to complicate.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a sense of what you have right now.
We can expand a little bit here and a little bit over here.
But how many do you have there now, Joe?
so when you said approximately 120 total, would some of them be in, 70 of them you already have parking for?
Well, if you look at 150,000 square feet of rentable space and you ask for 3 parking spaces per 1,000, then you're at 450 spots right now. No. Right.
That's a requirement.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why this building is in that count. That's why we put the loft on the third floor of this building, because it doesn't require daytime parking. So that's 10,000 feet. It removes 30 cars from the requirement.
So what is the loft?
It's a rental hall.
Oh, that's catering hall?
Yeah, and there's no food, just that you can just rent it, and it's usually on nights and weekends that, you know, where you can use the Metro North parking,
And how much parking is in that building right now?
24
On one
on the
level?
second floor.
And the first floor is,
There's Island Fisher has some storage space on there, and Herman Hardware has storage space, and Glassos Mirrors there, and he has 3 cars. So the impact on this building is negligible to the site as far as parking goes. So that's a huge benefit to the,
You own that building as well?
yes.
Does it make sense to go over, like, kind of like the exchange? So we grant this, zoning change, this, I mean, it's in the.
Can't speak.
Can't hear you.
Why we're considering this, or?
What is the village getting out of this?
I think I have to continue up and
Oh,
around
are
the
you
corner
still,
here.
oh, okay.
Well, no, I mean, I do only because if you're proceeding to the north here, there's other improvements that they're proposing. Sidewalk wise and going down to South Astor Street and all that, it's all part of the equation.
Okay, so keep describing.
So the sidewalk, I mean, we pretty much touched on it. The sidewalk goes down to the Red Barn Bakery. We get some landscaping improvements here perhaps. And the benefit to the village is less parking stress, and a safer environment for pedestrians and a safer environment for
Safer
motorists.
environment because you're putting in a sidewalk that does not exist currently.
That's number one. And number two, we're putting in measures to slow traffic down as they drive through there.
When you narrow the driving area,
Yeah, no, we get that.
Yeah.
John, am I right, to put in the sidewalk running to the Red Barn, don't you have to then change the street? Don't you have to widen the street on
We need to make a minor widening on the north side where it's shaded in brown.
Uh-huh.
but that's not really impacting anything, it's just changing
No,
the
but it's
curve.
just the work that they're gonna have to do to install the parking.
Correct.
So it's showing as brown, but that's
I
actually,
mean to install the sidewalk, I'm sorry, John. Thank you.
you show it as brown, but it's not, it's actually a removal, right?
Yeah.
It's asphalt now, we'd just be cutting it and
moving a curb.
moving a curb.
Exactly. However,
It's asphalt behind the curb right now.
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
Any additional lighting part of this project?
I'm guessing there would be some lighting in the parking lot. It could be
Yeah.
low bollards, and it could be time-based.
I want to use LEDs that are in wall mounted, in the retaining wall.
You could put them in the retaining wall,
Right,
yeah.
so it's in the wall, so it faces away from the residents.
And what about lighting for pedestrians coming around here and here?
We can light the building, I mean, the building, we can put lights on the building.
I guess there must be street lights.
Probably spare street lamps there.
Street lights there, I don't know.
From the village.
Yeah, I don't know.
They marked here, Paul, at all?
We could, if and when we get there, we can have a look at the lighting, to make sure that it's adequate.
But if you put it on the building, it's gonna be very nice. There is one light pole here,
Say it again, I can't hear you, Paul.
there's one light pole here, right there. And,
I guess that's what that's.
I have to put a retaining wall in here because there's a grade drops. To get the sidewalk in here, you'd have to put a retaining wall in here. And you can put lighting on the wall, okay, which is very nice, okay? Because it lights the sidewalk, and it's not high, and nobody sees it. There's so much, there's beautiful things you can do with lighting now, okay? There's so many different kinds of fixtures, okay, and different ways of doing it than the conventional way, okay? Or any lighting on a retaining wall here would be down below, you wouldn't see it, okay, and you'll never see anything else.
So Paul, just one further question, I mean, not one further, but one that, Brian and I were talking, what's the grade change the grade of the blue lot
Yeah.
is down to, at parking level, it's, here you got it already. 41, there's actually a grade change in the parking lot, it's actually slipped.
Yeah, so let me speak to that, because some of the questions that came up is, are you gonna see the cars, are you gonna see the parking?
Yeah.
So this is elevation 50, so that's fixed, you gotta get into the parking area. There would be a parking area over here for the handicap, and then you have proposed to try and get a ramp into the building. So this is, for discussion purposes, this is elevation 50,
Right.
okay, and you're gonna go down to 41. And the grade out here is 48 and a half, so 41 to 48 and a half. That car down here, this would be about an 8.5 foot retaining wall, so you wouldn't see the car.
And then up at this end, it's what?
And
So,
up
so
here,
the parking lot's gonna
up
slow
here-
from 50 down to 41.
50, 41.
So up here, what would that retaining wall be?
This be,
Small.
probably 2 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 feet.
So you will see some of the.
At that edge, yeah.
So then what about the yellow area? How far down is that in grade? Is that, say, 36 to 38?
Yeah, so what I did is we went out and we got the elevations of the floors.
Yeah.
So maybe in the future, that we can, obviously, if you have this loft here, okay, you could come down this access lane, you come in here, but to answer your question, it is that low. Okay, I'm dropping this down to elevation 38 over here. So this is 50, that's 41, I would speculate that's 43, that's 38. I'm trying to not make this retaining wall so high. I'm trying to dive these things down because these retaining
I'm
walls.
trying to see also how it fits against this building. So the second floor is at 39.
You're probably gonna match the elevation of one of the
So
floors
Yeah,
inside.
that's what I did, I matched.
Close to the top floor.
Now, depends on how ambitious, you can put another level parking below it. And then you can drive in here where they go to this currently used parking
How many
area.
spaces are we talking about?
Well, you would double this.
Well, you're losing some though, right, on this?
But you could convert this whole section, they currently use 24 spaces.
Yeah.
You could, okay, put a, something in here so you can access it, staircase, okay, even an elevator, okay, and you can get down to this level. Okay. So you could put another level of parking down there. That's probably the most efficient thing to do.
15 spots or more?
15, I'd say.
Well, I mean, how many have you got there?
You got 15.
So you get another
So
15?
these are
And you
handicap
lose a
up
couple in
here.
here.
Can I just point out that that doesn't meet with the zoning currently? and
Correct.
It's not anything that this board has really even talked about up to this
Correct.
point. Because that, I think, is technically
Or I
considered a
have.
structure. Right, or you, so.
Well, actually, the reason why.
Yes, it's possible, but it's not something that's
It's
on
as
the
if
table
this
right
were
now.
very theoretical.
Right.
It's an idea of warning at the moment.
Here's the question. The question is that this project actually doesn't solve a significant problem. I mean, it solves maybe a third of the problem of parking deficit. And so I'm just trying to investigate, it seems like it's worthwhile bringing up what else there's not, I don't see where that parking deficit's gonna be taken care of. Why are we just sort of investigating various threats?
I understand. But it's just it's a different conversation than you've had up to now, that's all. There's no-
It's also, I think, a heavier lift, because you've got your zoning code issues to deal with if you want to put a second level of parking in there.
Right, 2 phases.
Well, you already have, and no one's ever answered my question, why you allow parking on the second floor of a building already. So I don't understand what that exception is,
Yeah.
because it's not a ground floor parking
Understood.
unless the ground floor is declared basement, and I guess that's how you get away with it. I've asked
that definition.
I've asked that question before, and never really been given an answer, so it seems like we're kind of already in a gray zone, in the gray building. I'm not necessarily against it, I'm just saying we're already halfway there, so that's.
Especially if this is, already sunken, and it's not like a typical kind of going up for parking, it's kind of going even.
So we were never looking at sunken before, but we,
The yellow was not, that's all,
Right.
that's the.
I mean, even at this level, this original one, when we had AMPS, that was basically street level. We're now talking about,
Terrace parking.
essentially,
Well, I
terrace.
think the original one, the last proposal also was slightly sunken.
Slightly sunken.
The whole thing was down.
It was only gonna be on one level,
Yeah.
but it was gonna be sunken enough supposedly that you wouldn't see it from
Okay.
Buckhouse Street.
That's correct, that's exactly right.
And what's your, can somebody describe to me what the retaining wall would look like? I realize, the plan is to have landscaping, but is this concrete or is it a gray concrete? What does it look like?
Because we just did a retaining wall up in Tarrytown behind the old Gaines Library at EF. It's a concrete retaining wall, they put a pad on it, and so it's kind of stamped concrete, and when you look at it from Irving Avenue or Neperon Avenue, the next time you drive by, it looks like a fieldstone wall. but it's concrete, so it's, you know, it's reasonably easy to construct and it's reasonably inexpensive compared to a concrete retaining wall. So, you know,
It doesn't
apart
look
from the
like
fact
a
that
Soviet block.
right, apart from the fact that the only people that are going to see it are, you know, Bill's tenants, but, you know,
On the inside of the lot.
On the inside, not on the outside. But
She's
on
worried
the
about the
street
outside.
level,
There's
you
not
see
any,
well,
this
but
retaining wall.
the wall is facing away from the street, right?
Yeah, you won't
Doesn't
see.
doesn't a retaining wall have two sides?
One side is open.
Only a little bit.
About a 6
side's retaining.
There's like a reveal and there's a fence between it.
There's like dirt on one side.
And what about safety issues? I'm looking at your elevation, it looks like on the bottom part it's about 27 foot.
So there's always a fence on top of a retaining wall so that people don't wander and fall over.
The fence looks like it's about 2 feet tall in the elevation.
Well, no, it has to be, I think, I don't understand, but it's about 4 feet. Yeah, it has to be, whatever the code is.
Oh, and what is that gonna look like, the fence?
So,
We didn't get it that far into the design, because, you know, we're not gonna do that unless we're moving forward.
if we get to the
We'll
fence
do it.
part, we'll make sure you're happy.
Yeah.
well, it actually wouldn't be for our board to deal with anyways, right? It would be for the ARB to deal with, I guess.
Yeah, we like wrought iron. So, I mean, you know, you can see the fences, the wrought iron we put in down there.
Could you put the other one up with this again, just, I know that, again, this isn't our job, I'm just trying to get a visual. So you got a lower level where the, so the side with Ivan
this is
Fisher is at the lower level, that's,
Correct.
yeah.
That is, you got that, John?
Yeah.
That is right,
These yellow areas.
yeah, it's right in here.
Aren't some of these areas recessed or sunken already?
This is the wall right here, that wall.
Yeah.
And then, this is where the loading dock is, we want to excavate this out.
So, but this area is down.
Right, that's all down.
Uh,
Everything's white here, and it's all down.
Yeah.
Well, I think it makes it a lot easier to think about this when you're thinking about everything.
Yeah.
Trying to compartmentalize it all.
I've got some concerns about, in this area, I think we really need to have our, some,
This intersection.
yeah, the intersections.
Can I make a comment about that, because,
About this intersection.
yeah, so we're talking,
You can show up there what we're talking
yeah, so we're talking about the South Astor Street where it meets South Buckout Street. So, you know, they weren't charged with fixing our
Yeah.
traffic issues all the way down South Buckout Street. However, one of the things that we have talked about publicly, and we've talked about it with some neighbors, is the idea that at some point, South Buckout Street from South Astor to Main Street could be made one way in order to continue to maintain the parking on both sides, which we currently have. I mean, it's barely a two-way street now, we all know that.
Only if there's no
One way.
parking space.
I don't know. That's not for me to figure out. It's for a professional with his capabilities. But in order to do that, you would be then directing more traffic onto South Astor Street, and whatever direction, you know, whatever you decide. And we didn't want to do that until we fixed or addressed the pedestrian issue that you have on South Astor Street. And this plan obviously addresses that. So part of this plan, and it's not, what we decide on South Buckout Street between Astor and Main is not directly connected to what they're doing. It's not part of their project. But I think the repairs and the corrections of some of the problems in this area would enable us will give us the flexibility to do something more on South Buckout Street in that area. But again, it hasn't been vetted publicly. We haven't talked about the exact plan or anything. But I think that may ultimately help with some of your issues that you're having with that intersection and the way the traffic kind of flows there, if you have a one-way in one of the directions.
Well, I guess the thing that concerns me just looking at this, and I haven't thought it through very much, because we just saw this tonight. To me, it's it may make sense, but it's counterintuitive to switch parking to the intermediate rather than the out next to the building, you know, in this section between Station Road and South Astor. And I'm really concerned about whether or not there's enough guidance to people who have not seen that kind of parking configuration, except maybe in New York City. You know,
But you see that, you kind of see that parking configuration when you're going north on North Buckhead Street, which is one way, mind you, but the parking is on the left side, just like if you were going in this direction. by the post office. It's on both sides, but it's on the left side too.
But explain, well, when you look, Mark, when you look at the pink line,
Yeah.
if you were to move the blue back to this side,
Yeah.
look what it does to the traffic pattern.
All I'm saying is that would have to be studied,
We
because sometimes
we will have a look at that. I mean, we can do it either way.
it seems counterintuitive to drivers. And I know it looks perfect on paper,
Right.
but it's one of those situations where drivers may not be
Just crossing,
expecting.
you know, when you park.
So we were out there the other day,
Yeah.
before we started this, and we were a little aggressive, and so we started standing in the street and making cars drive around us.
Yeah.
And they did.
Just to see how the traffic pattern went, and that's where this idea came from.
Uh-huh.
I started standing right in here,
Yeah.
and it was early because there's nobody parked on this side yet, and people just naturally just went without hesitation going down where the pink line is, and I'm like, wow, this is. And then you stand there and you look at it, you look at the way it's laid out, and it really makes sense. It kind of wants to be there. You know, it almost flows naturally.
It's very hard to get that to work if you put the parking on the other side.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm just saying.
Or that you get rid of the parking, and then you have a big, wide open space again, and you start to create the issue that you currently have.
I would be
The real
concerned.
problematic parking is right in here as it stands now, because you go around the curve and you cut right.
But we took that out.
That's why I wanted to get that out of there, and the only way I could come up with was to put this over here.
Seems to be the major problem is a loading dock most of the times that I've been in that area. Where
Right,
trucks
it's cars
are halfway into the station road intersection.
Right.
So, but I guess what I'm saying is coming this way south, where that little bump is, you know, it seems to me that there's gotta be better,
Do something about it.
you know, like, I don't know if it has to be a
Well,
wider.
we could take this bump, where am I here? We can
Yeah.
take this bump out and turn it around so that it's not just 5 feet wide here, it could be 5 and 8 and 10 feet wide.
Well, I'm wondering if you need something,
Parking space.
The width of a parking
something like that to protect those cars from
Yes,
someone
yeah,
who's
we-
just driving along that.
We had
Something
that.
to think about. I don't
We
know.
had
I'm
that
not a
here.
traffic engineer.
We had that here, but it became an impediment to the turn.
I understand that there, but there
Yeah.
may not, or it may or may not be, but to me, that's the kind
Semicircle
of
almost.
Right.
thing you'd have to do to really make people.
And by the way, you know, one of the things we have to do is we have to,
I took it off, I took it out because of the snow plow.
Right.
right,
You can get those radiuses.
So that was the last conversation we had, to how does this gonna snow plow, where's the snow gonna go? We tried to anticipate that.
these are the details. If we can, you know, persuade you that the concept is a net benefit to the community, then we can sweat out the details and do some turning template analyses and come back to you with an improved plan.
Okay, so just talking about net benefit, I get that, this is a trade-off, and we want it to be a win-win for everybody. This is
Absolutely.
not actually going to alleviate your current parking problem, given the loss of the metro.
It's not going to eliminate it, but it will alleviate it.
It's gonna help. I mean, every extra parking space we get helps.
Well, you're not getting that many extra,
Yeah.
given the loss from Metro. Really, this is
Right.
gonna be pretty much static, the current situation in terms of how many.
Maybe a plus 10 if you're lucky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Well, but the spaces are gone now, right?
Yeah,
So the 35 vehicles that parked there are now
Now.
parked all over the
No,
place.
I understand that, but I'm saying this, in and of itself, is not going to give you 40 more parking spaces than you have now, because you just lost 30-something. So it'll be something of an improvement, but not huge. However, that's not where I was gonna stop.
Right, okay.
There's lots of other good things about this, you know. But I just want everybody to be clear, this is not 40 new parking spaces that you didn't have before.
It's 40 replacement parking spaces.
They're replacing what you had that you lost. So it's not gonna make a huge difference in the number of off-lot parking. Some difference, but maybe not huge. What is different is the fact that we now have a reconfiguration of the roadway, the addition of the pedestrian, the sidewalk all the way down to the station, and a vast increase in an enhancement of the appearance of the facade of the building.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
just trying to summarize
Yep.
here. I was-
Yep.
Shouldn't have started with the parking, that was, but really. So it is not a perfect solution, but there's balancing
I mean, we're here to work with you to come up with the best product that makes it's the best for everybody, and we recognise that the neighbours have a vested interest as well, and we understand their concerns, and we're going to work with everybody and try and come back with a
So I think that, I mean,
solution.
So if this is for Bill and Larry, do you have, client complaints yet about the loss of the parking spaces?
Yeah.
And what about, are we getting higher complaints about illegal parking or
Not yet,
in the neighborhood?
not yet.
So the change that was made on the little side streets, it was changed from, was it 6 hours to, there was some change in the length of time that you could park on certain streets in the neighborhood. And there was certain, wasn't there?
It was 2 hours, now it's 6 hours.
It was 2.
That went the other way.
No, it's always a change.
No, in front of our house?
No, I mean, on like Maple and,
Maple, the hours didn't change.
the hours.
Which
It was the marking and how far back you could go
Okay,
from,
change.
okay.
So there was a change on Buckeye, though, 3 to 6 hours.
Up to here.
So I,
I mean, it's still not commuter parking, but it is long-term parking on Buckeye Street. There was
6
a
hours.
change. Yeah.
6
6
hours.
hours, yeah, I
A little
understand
sticker,
6
the
hours.
6 over the 2, so. How to make it 8, you put a little 8.
The sign that's on our property, by the way.
do
we have
a chance to speak as well? Yeah, I think I was gonna say, is there else anything you want to talk about now, or should we open it up?
No, that's.
Thank you.
Do you want to maybe pass the mic around, that mic there, or is it, do you think something up well enough? Sure. Pick it up, okay. Go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
So, hi, I'm Andy. It's Melanie. We just moved to town 2 weeks ago.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you.
Where are you located?
So we're located right here,
Okay.
which is strangely enough every other detail's on this map, but these houses are not there. I happen to be a mechanical engineer by degree, but so I look at a lot of plans. We just moved here from Tarrytown. We have 3 little kids. One of the reasons we left Tarrytown is because of the amount of traffic in the town and the noise of the cars, really. The car doors closing and opening during the night wakes up our kids. So we just spent a phenomenal amount of money to buy a fairly small house right here. There was no disclosure whatsoever that this was happening. We just found out about this a couple days ago. So as you can imagine, it's somewhat of a nightmare to us. If any one of you could imagine what it would be like to find out, and you as well, that someone was about to build a parking lot in their front yard, probably wouldn't be that happy about it. I only have like a few hours to look this over. I hear a lot of issues being solved that I don't know are even really issues. It's in our 2 weeks of being here, it's never been a problem to find a parking spot right here. There's always parking there, especially compared to Tarrytown. I've been walking down this road every day. It's not a problem. I don't feel unsafe. I don't know if there's been a history of
About that, that's.
cars.
Wait till
Oh, sorry.
wait till the winter.
Sure. I don't know if there's a history of like cars hitting pedestrians there. Is that something that?
There's been a lot of complaints about it and the lack of safety. There is a sidewalk that goes all the way over here
Yeah,
to
the
Main Street
sidewalk's on this side.
that no one ever uses because it's too far.
Right.
So we get a lot of complaints from people that live further south that they end up walking in the middle of South Astor Street, get down to the train, they feel unsafe about it, and they're asking for sidewalks on this side and down to the train.
Right. So that sounds actually like a completely separate problem there. Like, if that's an issue, you could build a sidewalk there regardless. It has nothing to do with this parking lot right here. So that'd be a really nice thing if you wanted to do
Yeah, if
that.
we want to build some sidewalks, we'd be fine with that. The parking lot seems to be what we have an issue with.
Right. The other thing is the elevations that I saw quickly online. Those are all from ground view. So if you go to our house, if you just walk up the stairs, you're now like 10, 15 feet up in the air. You'd be looking right down the parking lot. You go up to the second floor where the kids' bedrooms are, you'd be looking directly down on the parking lot. Literally, our house is right here. So we're going to be incredibly opposed to this. We're going to do everything we can to make sure it doesn't happen. I'd like the neighbors feel the same way.
Yeah, we feel the same way.
If there's some alternative, if we can help you convince the Metro North to give you some spots back, or since you own that building, you want to try to figure out how to get more spots inside it or in front of it,
We'll support you.
help you out.
What do you mean by in front of it? I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know. I mean, like, what's on the first floor of this building?
It's rented.
Right. So, I mean, I understand you're a businessman and you want to get as much space as possible, but like you could be using this as parking for this. But you know,
Math doesn't work.
well, I don't know. This is the same size as.
I'm telling you, the math doesn't work. I own it, I know how the math works.
Right.
Like, I need to invest to knock the building down.
That's right. But you bought a building knowing that this is residential property, right? So, it's not our responsibility to then turn that into our whole neighborhood into industrial parking, right? Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. So I do have one other note. The safety issue I was asking about before, in the elevations, there's a very, very large retaining wall. We have a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old. They like to climb things. They climb over that fence, fall 30 feet onto cement. That would not be good.
No.
So, yeah, from my perspective, I live over here. The sidewalk ends over here, is that correct?
Correct.
At the Greenberg. So, yeah, this isn't really solving a problem for pedestrians over here. It's just forcing them to walk an extra 20 feet or so, or 30 feet, whatever it is, and then cross the street, which they have to do anyway, which they can cross the street as far as I'm concerned over here. So that's not solving a problem. That's making people cross the street 20 feet down the road, or 30 feet down the road. So I don't see what...
Is there a sidewalk in front of the Greenbergs or not?
No,
No.
this
What's
is
beyond that?
private property. This is their lot.
No.
Their lot ends at the curb.
They don't have.
So unless you eminent domain or buy their property from them, you haven't solved any pedestrian walking.
Is there
There's a sidewalk
on the other side?
further down.
There's a sidewalk on the other side. The sidewalk on the other side extends all the way down to here.
I believe that actually comes this way, right?
Okay, but you can easily take this property here.
We've actually gone and seen the patterns of pedestrians. Everyone walks on this side.
Because right now, you're forcing people to walk over here, but you have this piece of property right here that you can easily turn into a
Starts again
sidewalk.
here.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
So, right here, this vacant property that's landscaped right now, and has trees on it, can very easily be a sidewalk. Right now, the sidewalk's gonna end here, that's gonna increase foot traffic in front of our house, that's all it's gonna do. We live right here. So, I don't see any benefit to that. In addition, what my neighbor Andy said is very true, that our houses are elevated because of the natural slope of the hill. So we're gonna be looking down directly into this parking lot. So regardless of the fact that you lower it a few feet, it's still gonna be an eyesore for us. And also, we have little children, the increase of traffic to people looking for parking over there is gonna be something that we welcome. The other question I have is that, you're gonna have this parking lot here. Are you planning on having an exit onto Bugout Street from the parking lot directly?
Not at that location.
Okay, I just wanted
Maybe right here.
So, you understand our concern, that, again, I don't agree with it, I understand. It's fine. I mean, I'm not asking you to agree with it, but, when we bought our home in a residential area, not in an area zoned for parking lots. And well, I understand that, you need parking. This isn't a commercial area. This is a residential area, and that's why we bought our home here. So, short of explaining to me why you're changing the zoning in my neighborhood for your parking lot, I just can't comprehend it. And to be honest with you, I'm going to fight you as much as possible as well. So I'm not going to make it easy for you. Now, you threatened to put housing across the street. Those are my options. Okay,
That's fine, we'll take affordable housing. Bring some kids.
I mean, the threat of affordable housing isn't a threat to me. And, my goodness. Sure. What a thing to say. When did you buy it? We bought our house 6 years ago.
In this area over here, this is the gas easement, right?
That's a lot, that's the last lot.
Sure. I don't know where the answer is.
So I just wanted to say, we chose Irvington because, oh, I'm sorry.
I think she can, we can fix her up.
It doesn't extend all the way.
Okay.
Say anything.
You can't, I just wanted to look at the plan.
Yeah, just to make sure we get it.
No problem, thanks.
Oh, sure. Okay, go ahead.
So we chose Irvington because we felt it's unique in that a lot of nature, woods, and green space has been preserved through the years. Many other towns have suffered a lot of industry coming in and parking lots such as this. And someone must have protected Irvington all through the years so it didn't end up like this. And I just want to say that I hope you'll continue to do that so that people and children can not have to look at a parking lot or be able to walk down South Buckout Street and take a walk and connect up with the aqueduct and enjoy the nature that Irvington has to offer. This is just very disheartening to see and to hear that there's very little thought about how it would be even protected. It seems like that's an afterthought. How is there going to be even any trees or anything? I mean, obviously that's not the priority, and I just hope that you guys will consider that when you think about this plan.
I just want to point out that we've actually been talking about sufficient visual buffers on multiple sides of this for months.
You have, no, I know you have, but I feel that in the presentation.
It's a surprise.
Okay.
That was the biggest change in this, other than the yellow being down.
I mean, the last we had heard, there was going to be a walking park or something across the street, which may have been an acceptable compromise for
Yeah,
it.
there was less, there was more of a buffer.
Looking at the map that they've drawn, at the schematic that's in front of me, I don't see how that's alleviated the pedestrian problem, actually, because the pedestrian problem that exists right now will still, there'll be a small area to walk across the street, but that hasn't solved anything for you. I mean, the only thing that this has solved is that you've created a parking lot, it seems to me.
I can speak. I have to say a few things, and I've been taking notes, but I have to say the last hearing we had about this issue, and I don't know if Pat remembers because he's on Maple Street, but all night long a car alarm went off, and it was like the canary in the coal mine to me.
We can complain, about that as well, that there's enough noise from pedestrians and noise from car alarms going off and horns, and it's going to be more, and it's going to be aggravating to us. I can call you every 20 minutes and talk to you about it.
Okay, so let me just finish my
Yeah,
case.
I'm going to get back to the noise from pedestrian thing in a minute, so.
So the
Or my lawyer can't, by the way.
The car alarms are a big problem. And now we're talking about having it used, the lot used for nights at the Hudson Lofts. So all night long now we have that. Snow removal. I don't know if any of you have had the snow removal in front of your house, but we for some reason on Buckout Street, they do it at very early hours in the morning, and they beep, 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 beep. You hear that all night long. So now you're increasing a lot of area for those noises as well. Not to mention the construction noise for however long this project is contemplated. And you've stated that it's not really solving the problem. It'll alleviate the problem, but you're destroying our neighborhood. You're destroying the residential character of our neighborhood. For maybe it'll alleviate your problem. I feel like alternatives have not been properly explored. I mentioned the DPW being moved a few years ago, and I was told, well, that would take years. Well, here we are years later, so maybe that's something that you can consider. There's also, I don't know, on Astor Street, there seems to be next to the brick building, some space down there. I don't know if that's something, but I feel like alternatives have not been properly explored. And public hearings about this, at some point, will bring in more than our voices, because you have that red brick building filled with residents who will be looking right at the parking lot now. So there's another, opportunity to hear from more people.
Which red brick building is that?
The apartment,
Yeah.
below the apartments, I don't know what it's called, what the address is, but I know.
Hudson View.
Hudson View.
Hudson View Apartments.
Now it'll be parking lot view apartments.
What's the elevation of that?
They'll be looking right into the parking lot. So maybe the landlord or the tenants should be notified. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes, forgive me, it's hard to put my notes together. Are these plans on the website now? Are these plans available so that we can provide them to council? Because we are certainly gonna go down that road, so.
First time we've seen
Yeah,
it.
this is the first time we've seen the plan.
You know, in addition, like again, you know, not for nothing, we moved here to raise our children as well. We have two 7-year-old twin girls. The town, you know, doesn't seem to have had explored other options in solving these issues. It's the first option I was presented with solving the traffic conditions on Buckhead Street has been a parking lot. And I don't think that's the solution to a problem, quite frankly.
And the sidewalks.
I think it's solving a commercial issue, perhaps, for someone. But, you know, Mick is running a business today, and I sympathize with his business issues. But it's certainly not, you know, it shouldn't be packaged to us as there's some great benefit to this, I'm sorry.
Well, and I said this a long time ago in my letters, that we're like selling our souls for safety and sidewalks, and you're really have to give this a lot of thought before you destroy our neighborhood. You know, yes, let's separate out the safety issues and the sidewalk issues and not just say, oh, he's gonna build us a sidewalk. Let's, you know, give him whatever he wants. This is detrimentally affecting the residential character of a residential neighborhood. We all bought our homes in a residential neighborhood. We have a commercial building down the block. We didn't expect that it would expand
Right.
into our front.
And by the way, what you said before, with all due respect, that if you change the zoning of the property, even if you make a decision to use it purpose-built, that can change as well, as it's changing now. Because right now you're changing the zoning. In 5 years, they can approach you again and say, oh, we want to change the zoning again. And you say, well, there's a clause that we can't use it, but we'll explore it. Because right now, it's a different, you're changing the zoning, which is a much more dramatic issue than changing a lien.
Sure. But you said earlier that once you change zoning, you couldn't change it back. So we could potentially change it to industrial and then change it back to residential. So it's kind of like a
Well, you know, I've never heard of that happening, quite frankly.
Okay.
I've never heard of a
You said earlier, if we change the zoning, we could never change it again. So.
Well, no, if you change it from a residential zone to a commercial zone, it's very unlikely that it's going to go back to a residential zone, I think. And I think that even if you put some kind of lien in place that states that you can't use that property for certain purposes, that can change as well. I mean, everything's, you know, fluid. Obviously, the zoning is changing, or you're proposing changing the zoning. It's all fluid.
Sure.
Well, what other alternatives are we exploring here? I mean, is this it?
For parking?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just quickly to talk about the Department of Public Works, we've been working on that for 10 years because it's such a great piece of property, and, you know, frankly, our Department of Public Works doesn't have to be there. We've explored several options, and they've all been dead ends. You know, frankly, we were trying to do something too, working with the fire department with them because the building's too small, et cetera. So we've been working on several different options for that, but frankly, they've all kind of come to dead ends. So it's been something that we've been working on, but, you know, we don't have limited budgets to buy property, to have, you know, we don't have a piece of property large enough in the village properties that may be way up in the woods, but it might be problematic for snow and things like that. So there's been a lot of issues going on with that. So that's why it's been hard. We thought we had a good lead recently. And
Well, I mean, you have to make a decision. If you want to live in a commercial district and turn Irvington into, you know, you can get an IKEA, I'm sure, and come here. And if you want to turn Irvington into a commercial zone, that's a decision that the board and the town trustees can make. I moved into a residential neighborhood, a bedroom community, a suburban community where I want to raise my children. You know, but again, maybe I'm the only person in the neighborhood who feels that way. Maybe people would like Irvington to become, you know, I don't know, the Short Hills Mall or something. You know, that's not my understanding of what the neighborhood was about, and that's why I moved here. I moved here for schools and, you know, a nice, safe place and decent environment to raise my children in. not a commercial district. If that's what the town is are the priorities of the town, it would have moved somewhere else, quite frankly.
And obviously, we don't have the money, like, we don't own all the, real estate on the waterfront, and we don't own 50 South Buckhouse. We're the scrappy little tenants, residents of Buckhouse Street. So, it's
It's totally shocking to us.
It felt to me, when I got the mayor's email in June, that it was like a done deal. And
Yeah, it's definitely not a done deal.
Well, it seemed like our concerns weren't that important, and what was important was that a parking lot go up.
We haven't moved forward at all. We've just gotten our second proposal. Obviously, the last proposal wasn't acceptable to us. And if this was a done deal, we wouldn't be
I
talking.
think, quite honestly, the last proposal, from my perspective, made a little more sense. At least there was some green.
Well, that's the exact kind of feedback we want to hear. We want to hear from you if they build any kind of parking lot, there's no way you can live with it. Is there an acceptable way to have parking? Even if it's pie in the sky, if they dug it underground, you never saw it, would that be okay? I mean, that's what we want to hear from you. Is there something we can do to make this better if we decide to move forward with it? That's why we want to have your input, and happy to have you guys move here 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
We want to hear your input as well.
I think also my taxes just went up significantly, almost double. And I feel like I'm being chased out of town between this an outrageous tax burden that's being thrown at me and construction across my street, across my house now.
But tax burden's hitting a lot of people.
I'm aware of that.
it's
But
just been double one.
I'm sorry, you're correct. Other people are getting hit with taxes as well. But I'm getting the zoning changed across the street from my house for my dollar. I think it's quite different. And by the way, if somebody were to buy the property across the street from your house and propose building a parking lot there, I don't know how you'd feel about it, quite frankly.
A little,
I don't think we're being unreasonable.
a little perspective, again, as Brian said, we want to hear everybody's input, but part of the reason that we're even looking at this kind of proposal is that there was a great deal of concern from people in the community about the continual moving of cars on the residential streets from the tenants of the building.
But this is just gonna bring in more cars.
Well, not necessarily.
You have a net increase in parking, yes, you do. Okay.
So, but the point is that the idea of building some parking connected to the building, part of what drove that was the wanting to alleviate the problem that residents have brought to our attention about the street parking of people who rented in the building. I'm not saying this is the right solution, I'm not arguing one way or the other, I'm just saying this didn't just come up like, oh, you want a parking lot, great, give us a plan.
It was interesting how it happened. Was we had the whole Spiro Park area. We got a lot of complaints that once they bought the building, they started renovating it and making it nice inside. It filled up quickly. So then all of a sudden there was all these extra
You're
cars.
talking about the Cosmopolitan building.
That's right. So
Nice building.
once the Trent sold it to Esther Buck, they put some money into it. They made it nice. People wanted to rent it. So all of a sudden there was an influx of cars. So where did they go? A lot of them went up Station Road, and they parked there, they moved them around, and every 3-4 hours they went out and they moved them again. So we got a lot of complaints about people parking there. Then the other thing that we were getting were a lot of complaints about pedestrian and vehicular safety here, because it's probably the oddest road, the oddest flow.
Especially during the snow and winter, when it was even harder to stay
So
on the street.
that's why we're entertaining this idea, because it was two issues that were brought to us again and again were potentially being addressed.
But just to set the record straight, you're saying that the neighbors are complaining about a parking issue. We are the neighbors, and
We're
we're
the
not
people who
complaining
live
about
there.
parking.
I walk on that street every day.
If you want to create a problem to justify a parking lot, you can.
Well, we can show you the emails we got received from many people.
over
The whole
a year and a
Spiro
half,
Park
2 years.
committee came
We
in.
live directly across the street. I mean, there's
It's not just directly across the street, it's also up Station Road.
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, like if you were somehow solving the pedestrian issue here, I would say fine, but I don't think you are. I think you're just extending the pathway a bit. I don't see where the great benefit is, quite honestly. And I don't see why you need it where that parking lot is at all. It doesn't go anywhere. It goes to the Greenberg's house.
And what about the Astor Street next to the red brick building area? There's space there. What
You
is?
mean south of the long narrow building?
the red, I don't know
Go
which,
ahead.
the Hudson View, no. On
down
this
here?
side, I'm sorry,
No,
that's, yes, down there.
Oh, of that building, of the power station.
The Hudson View building seems to have space adjacent to it. Again, just exploring alternatives because this seems to be, all we have. Maybe we could just explore the alternatives.
Who owns that space you're talking about?
It's your salt shed.
Oh, the salt shed. Oh, okay, the salt shed.
I mean, again, you're talking about some spots here, some spots there. This isn't alleviating much, so, you're still gonna have people parking on South Buckout Street.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if this alleviated anything, quite honestly. I really don't see any net benefit to the town of Irvington.
I mean, in that you get a sidewalk on Astor is a benefit because that's a dangerous place. But you know what? We should have a sidewalk. We can build a sidewalk without Astor building a sidewalk because it's already partially built. So if you can just add that extra little piece, people would have a safe way to walk to the train. So I don't think the pedestrian issue is so much the Buckhead Street where there is a sidewalk, you just do have to cross the street. It's the Astor Street area that has no contiguous sidewalk to the train.
There is an aside for lack of a better word, from the colored area in the roadway, there isn't a sidewalk with the exception of the east side of South Buckout, as you get more towards South Astor Street, there isn't a sidewalk in through this area.
You know what, I walk with my children to the train, and what I do is we walk on the east side of South Buckout Street on the sidewalk. We cross at the yoga studio, go up the steps, go down. I mean, that's the safe way to do it right now. So there is a sidewalk.
In that one short stretch, right?
So, but again,
Isn't it the building's obligation to provide a certain number of feet in from the street, passage to public? That's not true. The building's like right up against the street. There's no. I thought that was
Supposed to be a 3 feet right of way.
It's never that even.
It's 18.
The right of way is where it is, and the road is built wherever it's built. I mean, you can point out where the property line is, but it's basically on the top of that green space. No, yeah, there, but also in the front, right? All across. That's where the right of way ends. Yes.
What you have now, on a safety perspective, is people are walking in front of the DPW, and there are very big risks. I see people with baby carriages where the DPW trucks could back up, and I think South Astor Street, if you want to build a sidewalk, we'd welcome that, but to destroy our neighborhood for it, we are.
Shocking. So, Mr. Mayor, I guess, we understand what your position is. We understand that we're looking to make some improvements. We'll have to take it back, scratch our heads a little bit, and,
Yeah, I mean, we've only seen this for the first time tonight as well, so we have to think about it, think if there are other alternatives, alternative plans. If you guys have thoughts on what can make the plan better, I think from nothing changing at all to, expanding it further. We're happy to hear from you. This is not something that's obviously happened quickly. You've come to meetings for 18 months to 2 years. Mrs. Gallagher's been here quite a bit. Yeah, so it's been on and off for a long time. So this isn't something we rushed into. As I opened up with, changing zoning is a very high bar. So it has to be a clear hurdle that's, it's not like you just get over it. So, we have a lot to think about. It's a fairly new plan. It's a different plan. There's a lot of moving parts.
My understanding was that part of that property was owned by the town. Is that not the case?
There's a part through the pink and blue unit there.
And that would be sold to Astor Buck?
We figure out something. So,
or there'd be some agreement on the value of the work done or something like that?
And what about drainage and stormwater runoff and?
So typically,
once we get the zoning, we prepare a site plan, we do hydraulic analysis. Most likely there would be galleys underneath the parking lot, so the stormwater would run from the parking lot into the underground galleys. But there would be a detailed stormwater study, and the runoff would be less after the project than before.
But again, we're kind of early days,
Right.
because, we're not gonna do all that kind of heavy lifting until we have.
Are there any air rights on any of these properties being built?
35-foot height all throughout.
Oh.
Okay.
Flat.
Just to reiterate one more time, our position, we're not interested really in hearing about drainage or easements or passageways. We do not want a parking lot in front of our house.
The utility easement, is that on the schematic as well? That there's a utility easement next to Mr.
gas-
Greenberg's house?
Gas pipe, that
I
is,
thought there was a 25
Yeah,
foot.
that last piece is the gas easement.
Right next to Mr. Greenberg.
It does have an easement. It does, I know about it because I'm party to the contract that created that.
what's underground? I mean,
Yeah,
so it's still,
the gas line goes
it's
through
still
there.
on the land.
And there's an easement there in the sense of access to the Hudson View Apartments for the gas line. Yeah. My lawyer worked with Mr. Rancic and also Mr. Trent when he owned that property. We worked out that whole deal, and you can't build anything on top of that because it has a major gas line on there. Right. You might remember I erupted when there was something envisioned for that a long time ago. I pointed out there's a gas easement. So that is an easement there.
And is it 25 feet long, the unbuildable?
Yes, something like that. I don't know the exact measurement, but 20,
There's
25
a
feet.
20-foot wide, 20-foot
Yeah,
easement.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's 20 feet in
Yeah.
current drawings, that's the white area, that in blue.
So will these plans be available to us on the website, or how can we and our council look at the plans?
It's up to them, I don't know
Well,
whether.
I mean, because we haven't submitted anything to the board, we've come before the board for discussion. Clearly, there are some issues. It's up to, I guess, Bill, it's up to Bill whether you want to give these out or not, or we just want to take them and,
I'd like to-
rework them.
I'd like to get the village's feedback and do a modification. Because this is a first swing at it, so this is not something that's, ready to be built.
Yeah, it's the first time we've seen it as well, so, we don't really have a lot of feedback.
And the planning board's review letter, you said there was a letter,
Well, under New York State law, the Board of Trustees can ask the planning board for its recommendation on a zone change and a master plan change. And they did ask us the first time around, but again, as Brian said, I'm just getting this evening too. I was looking at the previous plans coming to this meeting, expecting that we're going to talk about previous plans again. So we haven't even had a chance to look at them. And again, it would be up to the Board of Trustees if they want to.
Yeah, I think if we're gonna move forward, we'd always want our planning board to weigh in. Because Neil Patrick works for Westchester County and as a planner, so he's a great resource that we have for free.
Something's wrong here. Can we share the planning board's letter publicly?
That's an available document.
Yeah.
We should probably put that up under the Astorbeck part.
Yeah, well, the current letter from the planning board for the last plan will publish with underneath the documents on the website.
And again, what I submitted to you yesterday was based on the previous plan.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
We'll make that clear, we'll put a, okay.
and if I could just point your attention to your Town of Greenberg zoning, chapter 285-64, your amendment procedure on zoning, the final letter G says that if 20% or more of the owners adjacent to the proposed change are opposed, such amendment shall not become effective except by the favorable vote of at least 3/4 of the member of the board. So,
Is that the town or is that the village?
that's the Town of Greenberg, but our village code refers you to the general plans of the Town of Greenberg, so they seem to be something that we have have to take in.
They're
into
synchronized.
account.
Your local code assumes Greenberg, the town of Greenberg's local code.
It points.
I don't think I'm
So,
Well, that's what your website says, so
Well,
you
we
should.
can ask our attorney here.
If you read your zoning code, it does refer to the comprehensive plan of the town of Greenberg. And so I've been in touch with the Greenberg zoning people, and so I'm just pointing that out to keep that in mind. There's, a lengthy procedure that's set forth 3 pages worth, but certainly, I think you have your 20% opposition, so something, should it be applicable to consider?
I think it's
100%, yeah.
The village has its own master, the village is an incorporated area, we're separate from the town of Greenberg, we have our own zoning ordinance, our own master plan.
Right, but it does reference
And
to.
there's state village law too, I mean, I refer to Mary Ann, but I don't think we're under the town of Greenberg
No.
code.
It seems to say in accordance with the town of Greenberg's master plan, so just something to consider.
Well, we
So
can
the
discuss
thing
that
is,
at a
the
later
town
date.
of Greenberg zoning regulations, any of their regulations don't apply to an incorporated village.
Yeah, even though we're technically a part of the town of Greenberg, we're separately incorporated. If it was East Irvington, or, the unincorporated version, they're parts.
a conversation for another day.
Yeah, exactly. Way beyond our
I
big.
stand corrected.
No worries.
No, if you're correct, we have to abide by it. But the consensus, perhaps mistaken, is that the village code applies. But if you're correct, we'll have to abide by it.
Okay,
All right, is that it for tonight?
I think so.
On this?
I think we've done enough.
I think you guys know where we stand. Thank you.
Questions?
We want to move.
You have a way of making everything.
We're gonna try to keep you at 11.
I know that you've gotten letters from.
I don't know. Oh, yeah, so, yeah, I don't know about that.
So you're actually gonna move, at that point, you're gonna confirm that.
I know, because Mike has been such a. Sidewalk.
So why didn't you-
Sidewalk.
Some feedback.
Yes.
The west side of South Buckeye is one of the.
Okay, let's get on our street building.
So, does Caesar talk about that at all? No, he talks about.
So, good to see you.
Hold on one second.
What are we doing?
I was just looking at mine.
Is it wasn't out yet?
No.
He's the gauge engineer.
No, it's not.
It's not on?
No, it's.
Oh, okay.
The green line is on.
Yeah, no, it's just I'm trying to figure out. That's all right. I mean, there's still the ambient sound. But,
We don't actually have minutes of working
God,
session.
no.
Yeah, thanks for coming down.
Don't even say it.
We'll be in touch with us.
We have to transfer.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, I don't know. They're all that way, so it can't be.
No, they started differently, but I think it's a power issue.
Yeah.
Anyway, discussion of rock chipping regulations. This is something near and dear to my heart because I'm here.
Something I wake up in the morning thinking about, rock chipping.
And it's, I guess, serious.
Yes, it's a serious.
I actually sent the video once about how loud it was. I didn't know what it was.
It's rock
It's, but the
But it broke my
exactly right, the speaker, but that was far away. That was, I mean, I'm a quarter of a mile away. But the new development behind the high school has almost constant rock chipping, and it's on 6 days a week. I guess not on Sundays, but 6 days a week, and it's been for 3 or 4 months. It's not like, you know. So I think what I envisioned, and I spoke briefly to Ed about it. I kind of said, I think they're following the code because you told me they were. Maybe we should talk about the code, and you said it's probably a good idea. Because I mean, the way I look at it is almost. If you limit it, you might actually change some designs, because now it seems like they're just building on pure rock. They're just like, oh, we can just do this chipping for the next, for an indefinite period. Then you think maybe they could, one of my big problems always with the developers are they do it the easiest way, not necessarily the best way. So, I think we brought this up over the summer, I guess. And we thought maybe you can limit it to a certain amount, per week, per month, per year, whatever it is. And I think that would eventually change the plan, so it wouldn't be, months and months and months and months of 8 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Well, that's something simple, like just have it at a more, like not on weekends and after 9:00 a.m. In other words,
Right.
make it more humane.
So here's I have a couple of observations that I think that kind of came from Ed largely, but just so that.
Ed said he had some good ideas.
So you understand. Right, no, but just to show the whole picture. So, the reason that contractors are chipping rock is because our blasting regulations are extremely stringent. The issue then, in terms of a balance here, is that blasting is ultimately cheaper for the developer, but because our rules are very strict, they choose to do chipping, or they pretty much have to. So then if you significantly tighten your regulations on chipping, you may be, in fact, pushing more people over to blasting, which you already said you wanted to regulate heavily. So that's the balance. I mean, I think that then led to the discussion of, okay, there's a whole range of regulations you could put in place. The best place to look, and I don't recall if I circulated the actual document, but I will after this discussion. One of the best places to look for a stringent rock chipping regulation, which came out of significant public input and back and forth with the community, is the city of Rye. They have an extensive chapter on rock chipping and regulations and whatnot. And they talk about limiting hours. They talk about limiting the number of times that chipping can take place on a particular lot over a period of no more than once over 18 months. One window of time over 18 months. I mean, there's a whole list of regulations applicable to chipping there. So. That's certainly one side of it. The other side is going a little bit more simple, which is to really focus on limiting the hours. And so, the best example we got, and in fact, I think it came from a resident who made the suggestion, was to just simply limit chipping from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., period, not 7 to whatever it may be now, which is basically hours of construction.
And then just Monday to Friday.
And Monday to Friday, right. So.
That seems like an easy change.
Right, I mean, that's what Mark was getting at, the easy approach.
Well, also easy to enforce. You don't have to have any kind of collective history of how many times have you been doing this.
Right, yeah, I think the pendulum was swung pretty far over in Rye, in my own opinion. And frankly, if you had regulations like these on the books, you might be, in fact, encouraging blasting, which is not going to serve your purpose either.
So blasting is a loud noise and a dangerous situation, but it takes, just like a few seconds, and then it's over. Whereas chipping just goes on and on and on.
As well.
Yeah, but not nearly as long as chipping, but there's a lot more damage from it.
Yeah, you can damage other properties.
They fly and
the regulations aren't unreasonable.
or blasting, I mean.
Yeah, the
They're
blasting stuff,
appropriate.
they're restrictive, but they're not
No. Is any blasting allowed?
Yeah.
Oh,
But the regulations are very strict. That's.
for hours or types or of blasting or?
Well, no, the hours aren't different than what are the regular construction hours, but it's the notice you've got to give, the insurance you've got to give, indemnification.
I think it's kind of for speed and, the kind of effect, because it's not like we've had a huge public outcry about this. I've had a group of neighbors in that area complain to me. So it's not a huge endemic problem, so maybe the quick fix of eliminating Saturday, I think, is
Oh, that, yeah.
really,
And Sunday,
really
right?
quick. Sundays are, you can't do it. But eliminating Saturday, so then it would be Saturday and Sunday, and I think, making it 9 to 3 or something, so,
Could I just ask a question? I mean, there's 2 developers up there as far as I know, and Marianne, you can correct me.
Yeah, I don't know which project it is.
Well, let's say
Maybe-
it's Heritage Hill.
It's somewhere in Heritage Hill.
Deer Park.
Deer Park, yeah.
Oh, so Steinschneider's.
Yeah, or Frank
Racanelli.
Racanelli. Those are the 2 people that I know of that are constructing up there.
Right.
Do we need to just ask them how much of a, is it worth just reaching out to them and saying, is this really going to be an impediment on you? Or do we just do it?
What are the hours now, Brian?
It's Sims Construction, so it starts really early on Saturday.
Yeah, it's 7 a.m. on weekdays.
No, but no. I know what the time is.
Oh, right.
Are they actually doing that?
Every single
Because
day.
the only thing I'm
For
thinking of, and
5 months,
I'm not sure how
6
much.
days a week.
I'm not sure what difference, I read through the ride regulations and there are, limits on the days and stuff and they say you can only chip for 38 consecutive days within an 18-month period.
Seems like a lot. to go
38
8
days.
But this was half months.
I mean, how much rock
Yeah,
are you
so when my only question is, if you limit, which is worse, if you limit it from 9 to 3, and if you did it from 7 to 7, whatever it is, and you could get it done in 30 days, but if you do it from 9 to 3 and it's gonna take 60 days, is it still better just to do it from 9 to 3?
Yeah,
Spread it out.
I think there's the idea
You're
of
at work.
waking up people and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I think weekends should just be out of Saturday.
Yes, I know, Saturday, maybe a little longer than 9 to 3, 9 to,
No one goes to bed
Yeah, is
before.
there any difference between 3 and 5? I mean,
Yeah.
9 I understand.
Yeah,
I
9
think 9, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to 9 to 5, just like a job, get out there.
Yeah, that's all, and then, yeah,
Babies are taking a nap.
well, they
You can
could
have
be
any
taken in.
9 to 5 is the most reasonable.
But I can't hear it, so.
Okay, why don't we say, why don't we change it to make it Monday through Friday, 9 to 5? We'll start with that.
And no
People have-
holidays.
No holidays.
Do we want to ask
You
these
want me
guys?
to draft a change?
We know the answer, that's.
No, we don't necessarily know the answer because, well, okay.
We can ask
You mean realistically, they're going to say
Yeah.
Well, you know what, you do, you draft it and you make sure that they see a copy, let them know we're considering this local.
I don't think we have to validate it ahead of time, but
Yeah.
certainly if they want to have it.
Yeah, they say, yeah.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
And, to me, it's if it, and again, the problem is they're starting new projects up there that are just starting to get to the rock, so this isn't something this is gonna be ongoing.
Would it make sense, I'm not sure about this, but would it make sense to ask somebody to, if they could do a proposal, they would say, okay, if we could blast for 2 days, then we could cut back the number of rock chipping days from 50 to 20. Do you know what I mean?
But they still have that option now, they just chose not to. for whatever
Yeah.
reason.
Okay.
But they could still blast now, but they decided to just chip forever.
It's a blast.
So I think we start with that. I mean, getting rid of Saturdays is big, and 9 to 5 seems like a reasonable, because in summer it was
Has this come up before, except for Riverview Road? I've never heard of this as an issue.
I heard about it when it was going on in Rye, it was a,
Yeah.
but it was.
Does anybody else ever hear of this as a?
There's not a lot of, the only place that I know they were doing a lot of hammering and, was up on, what's it called? The development off of, Park Road.
Oh, Hugh Hill Lane, I got.
That's you, yeah, right. There was a lot of, jackhammering
It's
going
been a
on.
big issue in Greenberg recently, in East Irvington, where they're doing that new project.
Oh.
I know the East Irvington Civic Association is organizing they're talking to Greenberg about it. So, yeah, Paul Finer, it's all right.
Well, I think we should draft it. That's, I mean.
It seems reasonable to me. Let's get rid of
Sounds
Saturday.
like it's a I mean, I'm
Of course, I'd
surprised.
like to do that for all construction, isn't
I'm
it?
surprised you can
More
do
annoying than
construction on
waking up to
Saturday at all.
Saws and hammers at 7 a.m.
And I will say that the leaf blowers have come up. I've gotten a few emails about that. I don't know
Oh,
if you guys
yes,
have.
I brought this up 10 years ago.
I know, but the one thing I pointed out, Brian, and that, I don't know if you saw my response to you when you got that email.
I didn't get
No,
this.
well, Brian got a piece of correspondence. I wasn't directed at the rest of the board, so it seemed like you were just asking me a quick question. But, you know, the complaint was, you know, there's all these leaf blowers going on right now. Well, any of the regulations that I think we had talked about didn't prohibit it during this window of time. It's actually outside of this window of time that they were going to be, you know, either banned or whatever. Again,
There was only one alternative to that, and that was Tim Downey's idea, totally kind of perpendicular, that it was about the train and leaf blower manners, you know, more or less, you know, so it's a little bit slightly different approach, but some of that would have been, you know, the hour impact, but also, I have a problem with, like, on my shared driveway, where they come down and do the blow, and they blow half the crap down my section of it, you know.
Yeah, you got your own blower.
No, that's a leaf blower boards.
Well, it's just like, you know.
It's like your neighbor being nice.
No, but that's a good, right.
It's true, though. No, you're
The
right.
part that does it similarly is that a great deal of the time is spent with the blower on the road, moving the leaves a little bit further away from the property and just slightly scattered around the road, and that takes a great deal of time. There's nothing
However,
needed.
just remember, Connie,
Yes.
that the last time this was brought up, a couple of years ago, or last year, I don't remember, the Green Policy
I
Task
know, we
Force
didn't want to.
asked us to table it.
I know.
That was kind of what I said to Larry was, you know, have we heard from them? And so we can follow that separate.
But I'm sure they would not support blowing the road.
I'm sorry, it's for 9:30. I'll see you on Monday.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
So, okay, so I think we have a way forward with the rock chipping. Discussion of proposed grant funded improvements in scenic Hudson Park. This is something that Larry and I guess about a month ago now, we got a call from Tom Eminante's staff that they had there was an interesting, there's a name for it, but it was basically a small grant that really the only restriction was it had to be something we weren't going to spend our own money on that we wanted.
I had several ideas.
In capital, so we just gonna spend it on, you know, my salary. A one-time bonus for being a great mayor. So Larry.
Spend it on fireworks.
And then it was like, oh, and the other catch is we need something, we need you to give us something to look at in like 2 weeks. So Larry went to I think it was luckily the staff meeting was the next day, so we kind of opened it up to everybody. And it was about $100,000. It was, you know, one of those and it had to be about that, it could be more, you know, so.
Capital improvement.
So I think the rec had like 2 or 3 different ideas, and they might have been the only ones. Did someone else have something?
Yeah, there wasn't really much else, because,
The theater stuff is.
yeah, see, that's not ready yet, and the numbers haven't fit right, that's the problem, is they were looking for
Yeah, exactly, it had to be about 100,000 exactly.
You know, there was one of the ones we looked at, we went back to our list for the consolidated funding application. And one of the ones that was on the list was the idea of the outdoor theater up at the nature center.
Right.
But it actually isn't enough money. It was like, we think it's probably like a $30,000 or $40,000 project, so it didn't make sense.
Costumes, band show,
Yeah, really good lighting.
Actually, no, the
solar.
So the
musical instruments.
So the band shell actually is closer than we think. Anyway,
Yeah, so the rec came up really with the 2 most promising things because A, they kind of had designs for them, and B, they could get it together quickly. Was
Changing the fencing around the.
increasing the height of the fencing. It was playground material, playground near the IK Benjamin Center here because they have the daycare there. They don't have a playground. And 2 was down by the senior center, was like a gazebo type thing where they can have their outdoor lunches and picnics and you know, if it rains, it's okay. If it's too sunny, it's okay. That kind of thing. Turned out when we looked at the playground equipment, it was too expensive. It was like, you know, it was more than 100,000.
it didn't quite fit over by the rec center either.
Just, and we couldn't get something nice in there that didn't look bad and that kind of thing. So we went kind of with the gazebo idea as kind of again, not a fully thought out thing, Abernathy's office really liked the idea, and so now we're not stuck with it, but we just wanted to tell you guys about it because of the fence.
Where would this go? Where would this go?
The gazebo's gonna be right near the fence?
No,
It's,
it's north of it.
Yeah, in the area west of the parking lot where the senior parking lot is. So
Yeah.
there's
So north of the basketball.
North of
north of the basketball court,
But
yes.
they sometimes put a volleyball, net occasionally.
Oh, I hadn't seen a line on that, but they put tents up
They
there.
put tents up
Yes.
for the senior picnic and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
So just to ask you that one, how big is this proposed gazebo?
It's a permanent structure.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah.
Here's the parking lot, and here's the river.
I'm just
And
asking
here's
how
the
big.
parking lot of Eileen Fisher, the chain link fence. It's in this
I
area
understand where
here.
it is, that wasn't my
Yeah.
question. The
Right,
question
I
is-
was mine,
Oh,
I'm sorry, I just wanted to make
How
sure.
big is it?
I think it was, we looked at, there's different,
There's different, because gazebo's gonna be all
And it's
sorts
not
of
super
sizes.
finalized yet.
yeah,
I'm just trying to get a
Yeah.
sense of what was
30 feet, something like that. Not
30 feet.
diameter, yes.
Yeah.
And there'd be like a pad that they'd put down,
Yeah, yeah.
and then it would go up on
And
it.
the
So-
structure would be something kind of more
Oh,
historical
We
in
have
some
to,
way?
there was a lot of different,
We
kind
were
of,
amazed at how many there were and how relatively inexpensive they were.
As long as it's not red and white striped,
we haven't,
I'm okay.
the thing's not ordered, we haven't.
I understand that.
The thing's not designed yet either.
Yes, we haven't, we did a conceptual design quickly to
Yeah.
get to them, and then they.
And actually, I was able to get in touch with a really good example of something that was done up in Newcastle. The actual design itself wasn't something that we would want here, just the way it was more of a pavilion as opposed to a gazebo, but that led me to the company that manufactures these things. And
That's what
so I got
matters.
an idea of pricing and all that, so it, they have interesting roof designs with a cupola or not cupola. I mean, there's all different kinds of designs, and we haven't picked any of that stuff out.
Yeah, okay,
I
here's-
don't intend to.
Would this be open to the general public, or is this only for senior use? Or-
No, it would be
I mean, would it be turned off?
I don't think
Was
so.
it open? Go ahead.
Potentially, if we're talking about renting out the senior center for functions, this could be an enhancement.
Sure.
You could have your committee or your bar mitzvah or whatever.
So the interesting, now all this sounds great, by the way, with the way we've thought about this park and the way we had thought about from day one, about the decompression of how this park was built. So the northern end is the active area, the middle area is active but open, and the southern area is open.
Passive.
Passive open.
Passive.
And of course, that's been called into question with your conversation about the fence, it's because it blocks views and, so here we are, not necessarily thinking that was an issue, but it's an issue we may have to deal with if this money is approved. We may have to look at it differently or have, conversations with
Yeah,
the seniors.
we want to tell them that this is, because, we didn't have anything going in, but we want to tell them about it, so we can get their input, that whole thing. So we wanted to first tell you guys about it, since this is, it's not, I don't think we've officially gotten the grant or anything yet, but it's, the ball's rolling. And I'd love to have put like some kind of stage in Matheson Park, but the problem with Matheson is it's private, so we can't accept state funding. So it was a bit of a bummer, because I thought having a permanent stage, even if it was just the base of it, would have been fantastic, but.
Yeah.
But I think the idea of what we're looking at is that this would be, it could be open on one side so that it can actually function as a small performance area.
They often have someone
That's what
playing
we're looking at.
Sinatra songs or whatever.
Well, remember, they had used that area for music events.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, that's-
barbecues and
Yeah.
picnics, they usually have a tent, so we thought it kind of made sense, but now we want to make sure that they're well aware this is being planned. But first, we want to make sure you guys are aware it's being planned.
Well, I guess we don't have to worry about negative.
No.
So I have a couple of comments. One, I think conceptually, it's a great idea to have more uses or more things in scenic Hudson Park. And I just think that whatever professional looks at the style and the placement and the view and all those features, is not just, ordered and.
No
put there.
professional has looked at this.
All right, so the idea is, so that would be, so somebody would.
Yes.
Right, so, I mean,
Soon get the.
not being a professional, just as somebody who would say, oh, I'd love to rent the senior center and use this, you'd certainly want to have it open to the river view, to look at the river, as opposed to being in it and not see the river. I mean,
Oh, yeah, no, I think it's open all around, so it's not a matter, it's not
But
closed.
that's just a minor, I just think it really needs to consider what the look of the park is.
Yeah, you're in a good area for a building, only because what's there now is, is the parking lot for, Scenic Hudson. There's not much else that's there, so.
Right, yeah, no,
You're not blocking a lot of people's views per
No,
se,
I-
although.
There's
There's some-
a different point of view on that recently, so, but regarding the fence, I mean,
Yeah, what's it?
so it's something we have to deal with.
So this is
Yeah.
good, process.
Yeah, and we just want to conceptually make sure you guys thought it was a potential use.
Which made sense.
Yeah, it's the details again, but,
Well, maybe we need a slightly different process than relying on, and I know, I don't mean to suggest anything disparaging, but maybe we need a different process than relying on our packed meetings to approve the look and placement of the gazebo.
Yeah, well, I think you just said it would be a professional who would,
Yeah, I don't
Oversee
think we're going
this.
to rely on RPAC, this isn't a fence situation. It's a little
Again.
more than a fence.
Yeah. Okay, I just want to make sure. What?
it's pretty funny.
What, did she actually say that?
No.
Can't.
Did I hear that you wanted to talk?
yes, yes.
Yeah, so why don't we make a motion to adjourn, can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?